And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Deeper Dive. It is Tuesday, September 6th. I am Josh Engelman. I am joined by Adam Scher. We are brought to you by Drafters. We've now got an 11-game slate. Normally, Adam and I do this back-to-back type show, and it's just sort of running it back. But today, it's actually different, and it's wildly different because we don't have Garrett Cole on the slate any longer. That's going to have a pretty big change to pitching ownership, which we're certainly going to dig into. If you haven't done it already, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. Follow us both on Twitter too. That would help. Adam, how's your day been since I last saw you?
It's been pretty good. Got a bunch of best ball drafts done. I'm down to only needing to do like 22 more on Underdog, I think. So still racing against the clock as far as is it going to fill before I get them done. I would really like to be able to just like four table the rest of the way because I've done 8 at a time a couple of times and it is absolutely a miserable experience. I don't really want to do it anymore. But yeah, I'm at least, close. I ended up only getting to like 144 on DraftKings, but like I'm at a point now where it's like, all right, if I get stuck at 130, 135, it's not the end of the world. So made some progress there. That was good.
There you go. That'll work. Been a relatively boring day for me, so I got nothing else to add. I'm running my top stack sim right now. But we've got 11 games to break down. I'm glad that we don't have to deal with the Yankees as a non-postponed game at this point. That was shaping up to be like not something that I wanted to have to deal with. So like, would you prefer it to still be on the slate?
No, I hate dealing with weather games.
Okay. Like, I didn't know if you were just like, I'd rather take the edge if everybody else screwing it up type stuff.
No, because I think like I don't think I have an edge when it comes to weather. I think I'm just guessing and I'm gonna get screwed a lot.
Yeah, I feel the same way there. All right. Top stack sim done. So now I can actually open up the workbook and we can actually talk about this slate and I can stop filibustering for the beginning of the show.
That is one of those things like you mentioned it. Like there's a tendency for people in like the space in general to be like, oh, this is like the edge or that is the edge. And it's like, it's not the edge if you're just as bad at it as everybody else.
It's very true.
It's just
so
a way
true
for you to make mistakes.
Yeah. Like, is it an edge? It should be, but it's probably not. Depends who you are.
For some people. I'm not one of them.
It's an edge for a very small amount of people.
Right. I don't have a particularly good late swap process. I don't know how to read radar. I am completely trusting other people to tell me what is going to happen with the weather. I'm sure some people do have an edge. I am not one of those people.
Well, there we go. You heard it here first. Adam has no edge. Just luck boxing for however many years it's been. Well, you ready to do this?
Yep.
Let's do it then. Orioles and Blue Jays. 4.4 run implied total on both sides for this one. Kyle Bradish and Mitch White going here. Bradish and White not really pulling any ownership. Do you see this as a spot where you want to get to any pitching?
Not particularly. It's just not a really appealing matchup for either pitcher. Neither pitcher is great either. Kyle Bradish has been having some success recently. Just shut down Houston and Cleveland back-to-back, going, I think, like 7 and 8 innings in those 2 starts. He's been throwing a lot more first pitch strikes since coming back from the injured list. And as a result, he's been able to have more success working the heading counts. Makes the off-speed stuff more effective for him. But remains to be seen if he's able to maintain that increase in first pitch strike percentage. That's certainly something that could just be noise over a handful of starts. And either way, it's still a really difficult matchup against Toronto. Not an easy team to strike out. Tons and tons of power here. He has had issues with right-handed power this year. This park should help a bit just because of the ridiculous wall in left field. But righties this year do have a 202 expected ISO against Bradish. On the other side, Mitch White only striking out about 17.5, 17.8, I think, percent of hitters. 18.2% of hitters as a starter this year, 4.31 xFIP. The Orioles are running pretty close to their best lineup out there. Like, you could make some sort of a case that their lineup is better offensively if you have Kyle Stowers instead of Rougned Odor, but that's kind of splitting hairs. 1 through 7, they are good. Mullins, Rutschman, Santander, Mountcastle, Urias, Henderson, Hayes. Then you have at least a little bit of power in Odor and Mateo at the bottom. Certainly not a matchup that I'm going on my way to take pitchers against.
Okay, that makes some sense to me. Not really guys that I'm super interested in getting to. I actually have these guys a little bit lighter than we do in top pitchers, so I'm even more unlikely to get there.
To answer the
What
question
about
about is it rainy in Baltimore, it is currently not raining where I am. It's like sort of kind of cloudy, but not really. It was raining this morning, but cleared up.
alrighty, sort of kind of cloudy. That I can see why your weather process is not ideal.
I mean, like there are clouds. It doesn't
The word you're
actually
looking
no.
for here is
It's
partly
legit
cloudy.
cloudy.
Okay, mostly cloudy.
Yeah, mostly cloudy. I was looking. I forgot that I was looking through. So like, my office is facing my balcony, but I have the shade down in front of me, so I was looking to the right. So basically, I was looking through my balcony door and then out the windows of like my living room, and it was
Okay.
distorting the color of the sky a little bit. So I didn't realize how cloudy it was. But yeah, it's legit cloudy.
Yes, please don't be a meteorologist. That's not what we need. Bats. 11th in ownership for the Orioles at about 3%. 13th in ownership for the Blue Jays at about 2%. But the Blue Jays are coming in number 4 in our top stack tool, number 4 in my top stack tool as well. I like the idea of getting to Toronto.
Yeah, so do I. I mentioned them in both the DraftKings and Tournament Plays videos in that they're going under-owned, but they are expensive. And one thing to keep in mind, we obviously haven't talked about the Coors Field game yet, and there's going to be a ton of things to say about that. But not only is it a Coors Field game, when you have Milwaukee as cheap as they are, you have to keep in mind that you're not simply playing an apples-to-apples game of, oh, I'll take the lower-owned Blue Jays and hope they beat the Brewers, because the Blue Jays can outscore the Brewers, and you can still be at a disadvantage because you're able to build such better lineups around the Brewers bats because of the price. So you have to keep that in mind too. It's not just, apples to apples. Oh, they're 1,000,000% owned and the Blue Jays aren't. But that doesn't mean that I'm not happy to get to Toronto. They certainly have a lot of right-handed power here against Bradish, and it's a really high upside spot. Their bullpen also worked a decent amount yesterday. They did call up 2 guys. I mentioned this morning, that they had the doubleheader yesterday. They did send down Nick Vespi and Bruce Zimmerman. They brought up one of the guys that they got for Jorge Lopez, and they brought up somebody that they claimed off waivers. So the bullpen is relatively fresh, not as much of a concern as it appeared to be this morning. Whether those guys end up being good, I have absolutely no idea.
Sure. Well,
but they also didn't use their best relievers for the most part yesterday. Perez, Tate, Bautista didn't pitch.
Do you think you're going to get to your Orioles today?
I think so. Right now, they're projected for 3% ownership, 4% chance of being the top stack. Obviously with 24 offenses on the slate, that doesn't stand out, but they are going a little bit under-owned. And I do just really like the lineup that they're running out there. Mullins, Rutschman, Santander are all expensive, but all obviously should be. Mullins steals bases constantly and has power. Rutschman's one of the best hitting catchers in baseball. Santander's got plenty of power. But then after that, the salaries drop off as well. Mountcastle, 3,900 at first base. Urias, 3,100 at third. The big piece here that makes them a lot easier to stack, though, is that Gunnar Henderson now has second base and third base eligibility at 3,300. So instead of it being you can only play him and Urias, now you can play them both. You can move Henderson around. He's cheap. He looks like a really good value. So he's, I think, probably going to pull up how much Baltimore I get to.
All righty. Yeah, it's nice to see. What's your expectation for Gunnar Henderson's position tomorrow on DraftKings?
Shortstop.
Right field.
Right, yeah.
Some made up nonsense. No cash options here, though, correct?
Probably not. If there was, I would assume it's Henderson.
Really? I mean, not that I'm like
the Baltimore side.
Yeah. Obviously, like if you get to Vlad, shoulder shrug.
What'd you say?
If you get to Vlad or something like that, shoulder shrug. Probably not happening.
From the Baltimore side, but yeah, Toronto, it's kind of a lot of that. Springer, Guerrero, Bichette, Kirk. If you get to any of those guys, cool. They're all expensive, so it's not like you're looking at them and saying like, oh yeah, they're really good values.
Should be pretty easy to build that 5-man Brewer stack in cash and fill out with just about anything that you would like to fill it out with. So there's also that going on today. All right, let's go to game number 2 then. Actually got my crunch running a little bit further now. Cubs and Reds. So we're skipping right over the Yankees game that no longer exists. 4.4 run implied total for the Cubs, 3.6 for the Reds. Wade Miley and Justin Dunn. This might be one of the worst pitching matchups you'll find all year. Neither guy is getting any ownership. Neither guy should.
Yeah, agreed. The only thing sort of working in their favor is that the wind is blowing in, it appears, in Wrigley. It's only like 70 degrees. As a result, only a 4.2 implied run total for the Cubs, only a 3.3 implied run total for the Reds. But like you said, neither pitcher strikes me as somebody that I really need to get to. Justin Dunn's projection has come down since this morning. Wade Miley's projection has come down since this morning. They're now in spots that I think I'm much more comfortable with. This morning we had them at like 13 to 14 DraftKings points, and I was kind of just looking at it like, shit, I really don't want to end up landing on these guys. I'm a lot more comfortable now that I won't be.
Yeah, I do not have these guys. And that makes me quite happy because I don't think they're any good. And I think Justin Dunn is the worst guy that we ever talk about. So we can talk about hitting here. We'll start on the Cubs side. 11th in top stack, the second best value stack of the day, second in ownership. I actually have them as an even better value than we do. But at the same time, I think that I can find my value elsewhere. This is going to be a team that I'm going to be getting away from. Understand why they're getting the love, but I don't love the ownership.
Yeah, I'm there with you. I already mentioned the hitting conditions. It is a good spot against Dunn, and I do think I'm probably a little bit higher on them in terms of top stack percentage, just because of the way that I
am.
Yeah, the way that I do mine and the fact that they do offer a lot of value here. But it's a big slate, and I just think they're going a little bit overowned. They are showing up in the dummy cash crunch I just ran. To go back to that Toronto-Baltimore game, crunching the top 100 lineups using these Stokastic projections, I don't believe I got a single hitter from that game, which isn't really shocking. The Cubs are showing up a bit, though. Yan Gomes at 2K flat looks good. Franmil Reyes at 2,600 looks good. Those guys are getting in there the most. And then you're just getting a little bit of Nick Madrigal, Seiya Suzuki, Rafael Ortega, Ian Happ just kind of sprinkled in the lineups.
Yeah, so I have them sixth in top stack, 5.2%. So 1.5% higher than we do. I've got a 6% increase on top value for today. This is just a free stack in a spot against the worst pitcher on the slate. I get the appeal. I just don't think the upside is as big as it is for some of these other teams that, your Dodgers, like the teams with real bats, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Braves, the Coors, obviously. So I don't think that this is going to be a spot that I end up with too much of the Cubs. I just don't think I need that salary savings.
And keep in mind, we also have a $4,800 pitcher facing the Tigers. So, right. That's a way that you can go to save salary if you're trying to get to more expensive bats as well. The individual ownership on the Cubs, I will say, I don't think is that concerning. Ian Happ, 13% leads the way. I think he's a really strong play. Franmil Reyes, only 8%. Seiya Suzuki, only 8%. Since the start of the 2020 season, Justin Dunn's allowed a 263 expected ISO to lefties, 187 to righties. So I do think it's important to reiterate that the Cubs do look like they're going a bit overowned, but I don't necessarily think the ownership is problematic in the sense that you're just throwing it away. The only team on this slate that's getting ownership where the raw number really starts to be a concern is Milwaukee.
Yeah, I agree with you completely there. I don't want to discount the Cubs. If you look at the Cubs, I think they certainly grade out well. If you were getting my top stack data, you would like them even more. That said, just from the way that I build lineups, I don't expect to be there all that much. I think
they strike me as a team that I would be very, very happy to just have. I don't know. That's out of teams we've talked about. We mentioned the Blue Jays and the Orioles, neither one getting much ownership. Give me a Blue Jays stack with Franmil Reyes, Ian Happ, and catcher, or and Yan Gomes, or an Oriole stack with some combination of those guys. That lineups like that make a lot of sense to me.
That I agree with. What about the opposite side of this one? Do you anticipate getting to the Reds? They are fourth in value, unowned. Should be.
I do not, because they are really bad. What do we know about Spencer Steer? I'm pulling him up now.
105 projected WRC plus, basically a 200 ISO. A slightly better. Well, I don't know. He's better than Donovan Solano, hitting one spot ahead
best
of him.
Hitter on the Reds already.
He has the highest WRC plus from Steamer in the lineup. So
yes. I will mention him. He's the same position as Donovan Solano. They're hitting 4-5. So from a stacking standpoint, he doesn't do a whole lot to help there. But 2,600 one-off Spencer Steer against Wade Miley is actually useful.
It is. I think that we can get out of this game at this point. Anything else?
Somebody said they think that is the guy that hit a home run his first major league at bat. I don't know. I do know he has one home run in 12 plate appearances, so it is possible.
It was also Gunnar Henderson, right?
No, Henderson hit one his first game, but not his first at bat.
Okay.
His first at bat, he flew into a double play.
Okay.
Do it. hit it down into the left field corner. Stephen Kwan jumped up against the not the home run wall, but like the outfield wall and caught it. And whoever was on first base is an idiot and just got doubled off.
Wait, where was the ball hit?
The left field corner. It was Mountcastle on first base, and he must have thought that he must not have realized that it was foul.
Okay.
And was trying to score if it got down. And Kwan jumped into the wall and caught it and then turned around and threw back.
Oof. Yeah, you don't see many people getting thrown out coming back to first from the left field corner.
Yeah.
That one's tough to do. All right, schedule for the rest of the day is simple. MLB Live before lock coming up next, 6 to 7, taking you straight up to lock. MLB Top Stacks tool is free, so go to Stokastic.com. You can check it out. We're going to talk about it throughout this show. And hit that like button. 600 people in here, 99 likes. We should soar above it. 125 should be on there the moment you guys hear this. Cardinals and Nats, 4.6 run implied total for the Cards, 3 for the Nats, Jose Quintana and Paolo Espino. Espino not owned at 5,200. Quintana 10% owned, 7,500. I don't think this Nats team is very good. It's not that great of a strikeout matchup, at least not what I have in here. So I don't really need Quintana, but at the same time, I understand why 10% ownership is coming in.
Yeah, he's just sort of a guy that's going to land in some lineups if you're making enough lineups. He's not somebody that you're going out of your way to get to. I think the ownership makes sense. He's not a great strikeout pitcher. He doesn't have a great strikeout matchup. So far this year, he's struck out 17.5% of righties, but he has held them to a 140 expected ISO. It's a good enough matchup. 3 implied run total for the Nats. I think that is up a bit since this morning. I mentioned this morning, the salaries on Lane Thomas at 2,300, Luke Voit at 2,800 in particular, look pretty appealing. You have Nelson Cruz, you have Keibert Ruiz. So it's not like it's a total cakewalk for Quintana or a spot where maybe you have zero interest in the Nats, but I do certainly lean towards the Quintana side. Overall, I doubt that I get too much of either one just because the Nats aren't very good and Quintana's not a great strikeout pitcher.
I know we don't have to talk about Espino here, so let's talk about the Cardinals first. 5th in top stack, 5th in ownership. Not a team that I'm really getting to. Wouldn't be mad if I did, that's for sure. Just going to be ending up in other spots, but they look pretty good to me.
Yeah, I agree. Paolo Espino, not particularly good. Has struggled with right-handed bats for basically ever. So far this year, a 214 expected ISO to righties, 163 to lefties. So again, not to say that you can't get to lefties here. You certainly can. You have a cheap Newt Bar leading off. You have Donovan. You have Dickerson. They're all inexpensive. But Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, Tyler O'Neill, they're expensive, but right-handed power certainly plays pretty well against Espino. Nolan Gorman's got power at second base as well. So the Cardinals do look good.
Yeah, I would have no problem getting there. They came up well below our top stack odds here, which is a little surprising to me. I rarely have gaps this big. I'm 1.8% below our mark for top stack, still at 4%, which is, basically average for today. I think that makes some sense. Just not a team that I'm getting to very often, and I am not getting to the Nats here today. Do you like the Nats as a value stack?
Just what I'd mentioned before, just a little bit of interest in the price tags on Thomas, Voit, Cruz, Ruiz, but I doubt that I get to too much.
All righty. We'll go to Astros and Rangers. 4.6 run implied total for the Stros, 2.9 for the Rangers. Framber Valdez and Glenn Otto. No ownership going to Glenn Otto, but there is some ownership going to Valdez. 38% owned, in fact. That is the highest ownership mark on the slate. Now that Garrett Cole is gone, Valdez is pulling the most, although Shane Bieber is basically the same ownership at this point. I have no disagreements here. I think it's a really nice strikeout matchup. The Rangers offense is not all that appealing. 2.9 run implied total is the lowest on the slate. He's not a big strikeout pitcher, but I expect him to go deep in this game. I am with the field on Framber Valdez.
Yeah, you had mentioned it right there, and you mentioned it this morning too. He's not a bad strikeout pitcher. He strikes out about 22.5% of hitters, but he also just offsets that by being able to go deep in the games. He's gone at least 6 innings in a lot of games. I need to use my.
You were ready to give an answer of 8 or 9, and it just kept going, and I could just see you being like, I can't keep counting.
Yeah, I don't know what the number is, but this is a really long. The last start that he went less than 6 innings was April 19th against the Angels. He went 4 1/3.
And I wonder if he came out from like a cramp or something.
No, he gave
And
up
like,
6 runs.
oh, he did. Just for reference sake, if you hold shift, you can click and like just select a certain amount. So it's 22 straight starts.
You
If
can't
you're
do
on
that I was
Fangraphs,
looking at it on DraftKings.
okay. Fangraphs, you can select a certain amount of rows if you want in the game
Okay.
logs. So if you just click the first one and the last one that you want when you're holding shift, it'll subtotal everything for you. So yeah, 22 straight starts.
Oh, and Sean Denny in chat said 22 straight quality starts. So yeah, pretty ridiculous.
That I actually think I saw that recently, which is truly insane.
Yeah. And so, I mean, to your point, just he makes up for the strikeouts by being able to go deep into the games. In his last four, he's gone 7, 7, 7, and 8 innings. And again, no, he's not a bad strikeout pitcher. He's kind of just average. He's a bad strikeout pitcher for a $10,000 pitcher, but he's not a bad strikeout pitcher. Just gets ground ball after ground ball after ground ball. I have no issues with Valdez here.
If you just simply ignore the innings qualification, he's only given up enough runs to not qualify for that quality start once. It was that one where he gave up 6. His other starts before that, 0 and 1. Didn't have enough innings. Everything after that, never more than 3 runs.
Yeah, he's been crazy good this year.
He got lucky once. He gave up 4, but only 2 were earned. But even that's the only time he ever gave up more than 3 actual runs. So craziness. Let's talk Astros bats, I guess, because I think we could draw a line quickly straight through the Rangers. 8th in top stack, 8th in ownership. This is actually my team that is 3rd in top stack, but it's only by an extra percentage point. How do you feel about Houston here against Glenn Otto?
I like the lack of ownership, and it's another spot where I think it needs to be really reiterated. It's not an apples to apples comparison to Milwaukee because the pricing is so different. But anytime you're getting a team like Houston that just has the raw upside that they do, and they're facing a pitcher in Otto that's not very good, you're getting not the best lineup, but a good enough lineup. Altuve, Pena, Alvarez, Bregman, Tucker. You're happy with all those guys. Then it drops off. You don't have Trey Mancini, which is annoying. Martin Maldonado isn't as good a hitter as Christian Vasquez. He does seem to hit home runs for me whenever I play him, but that's beside the point. So it's not the A lineup for Houston, at least from a DFS standpoint, but you do still have plenty of power upside here. You're not getting much ownership because they are going to be difficult to stack. Like if you're going 1 through 5, you're talking about 5,800, 4,400, 59, 53, and 5,300. That's tough to do, and it's going to force you on to like Mike Myers type builds or maybe Quintana or something like that. So you're certainly giving stuff up to do that, whereas you can go to Milwaukee and then play the best pitchers and the best hitters, and so you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball. But they are at least a team where the Astros just go hit 6 home runs. It's not like you go, wow, I can't believe the Astros did that.
Absolutely. I do have one random share of Ezekiel Duran. Otherwise, I don't have any Rangers. So anything here?
No, I mean, they're not even, the guys that you would want aren't even cheap. You're not getting any sort of, they're going to hit the ball straight into the ground discount. So I don't see it. If Framber Valdez manages to get blown up and you need the Rangers to win a tournament, I will just not be winning.
Very true. Royals and Guardians, 3-run implied total for the Royals, 4.3 for the Guardians. Chris Bubich and Shane Bieber. Bubich, 6K, unowned, should be. Shane Bieber, 10,600. Now your most expensive starter on the slate, 34% owned, basically the same as Valdez. And I see him sort of the same way as Valdez today. I'm a little bit heavier on Bieber than I am Valdez, but I don't really have much of a preference between the two. I think Bieber probably has a slightly higher ceiling from a stuff perspective, but not by all that much. I like the spot a little bit better against the Royals. There's just more strikeouts in this lineup, and there's very little power threat from a park perspective, not necessarily from the actual bats in the lineup. Top 4 can hit it out of anywhere here for Kansas City. I really like Bieber. He's going to be my most exposed pitcher.
Yeah, I like Bieber too. Not sure if I get to more of him or Valdez. I think they look very similar. We have Valdez projected for 20.4 DraftKings points. We have Bieber at 20.3. I think that sums it up pretty well, that they are very, very similar pitchers. Yeah. The top of the order for Kansas City, again, not the most appealing matchup with Melendez, Witt, Perez, Prado. But after that, it drops off. Michael A. Taylor does have like a 103 WRC plus this year. For the last 4 years, he's been at 75. His strikeout percentage is at around 25% this year, down from a 30% career average. So he's legitimately become a better hitter. Still not somebody that you're overly concerned about. But then after that, you get Ryan O'Hearn, you get Hunter Dozier. Massey's hitting eighth. He projects to be like a league average guy. Waters hitting ninth. So no Nicky Lopez, who's not a very good hitter, but that's replaced by Ryan O'Hearn batting sixth and striking out a bunch of times. So overall, and then the park too, like you said, overall a good spot for Bieber. A little bit more expensive than Valdez, getting a little bit less ownership as a result. They just both look good.
We are on the same page. Let's talk Guardians bats because I think we're going to ignore the Royals as well. Eighth in top stack for the Guardians. Third in aggregate ownership. I matched them with eighth in my top stack. I am not getting to them, however, because they are 4.5% odds to top stack, 8 for ownership. This is just going to be a spot that I'm light.
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of interesting to me. Jose Ramirez is only getting 10% ownership. Steven Kwan, Tyler Freeman, Oscar Gonzalez all projected for slightly more ownership than Ramirez. And then Rosario is less, Jimenez is less. That's kind of interesting just because I like it when you can get to, like, I don't mind as much that a team's popular when I can just play their good hitters and be contrarian. But again, it goes back to, like, you have to pay for those guys. And if I'm paying for guys, I can just get like the Blue Jays or the Astros at low ownership too. So I think I'm with you. The Guardians look fine here. I don't think I'm going out of my way to get to them. They're not popular enough that I'm going out of my way to avoid them. They just sort of look like lineup filler mostly to me.
We are on the same page again.
One thing to keep in mind, and I mentioned it this morning, I said I was interested in what their lineup would look like. They went with the typical predominantly right-handed lineup against the left-handed Bubic. As far as Steven Kwan and Andres Jimenez go, don't shy away from them just because it's lefty-lefty. Bubic has been extremely bad. Limited sample this year, 11.5% strikeout percentage, 252 expected ISO, 450 expected WOBA. Going back to last year, a 15% strikeout percentage, 221 expected ISO, 391 expected WOBA. I think it's important not to frame that as like a negative about the right-handed bats, because splits typically kind of just even out, but they're, move the direction that they're supposed to. But he has not been able to get lefties out. So you definitely shouldn't be, if you're saying, oh, I want to go to Cleveland, don't just like skip over Kwan and Jimenez.
Are you getting to your Royals today?
I don't think so.
Okay. I've heard that before.
Yeah. 30% Royals.
Anxiously await that screenshot. All right, guys, got a little bit of a promo code for you. If you are looking for potentially some softer best ball contests, look no further than our sponsor for this show. That would be Drafters. For a limited time, you can make a deposit of up to $100. They will match that deposit with $100 if you click the link in the description of the video, or you use the promo code Stokastic, Stokastic. Oh, man, I never whiffed on the spelling of Osimo. I really need to start spelling Stokastic out loud more frequently. Drafters has a $1 million best ball championship going, 250 to first. Can't beat that. It's looking like there's going to be some overlay, or at the very least, pretty significant reduced rake. That's about as good as it's going to get for you guys. You should try to be attacking those kind of spots as much as you possibly can if you're interested in best ball. We have plenty of best ball content on Stokastic.com that I think will help you out. So again, click the link in the description, or if it pops up in chat, use the promo code Stokastic when you sign up and get up to $100 for first match deposit bonus. Drafters drafts yet, Adam?
What'd you say?
You hitting up the drafters best ball?
Gonna try and get some done between now and Thursday.
Okay, there you go. Rockies and Brewers, here we go. Got to talk Coors here. 4.9 run implied total for the Rocks, 6.3 for the Brew Crew. Chad Kuhl and Brandon Woodruff. No ownership going to Kuhl. Don't even think about it today. For the Brewers, 9,400 for Woodruff, 6% owned. I have less now than I did earlier today, and I freed up pitcher exposure. I wish that I was getting a little bit more, but I don't think that I would want much more than 6%, so I don't really care all that much.
It's just such an interesting spot to me because I don't know. And the fact that it's interesting to me that you said you're getting less Woodruff now, because and I'm sure you agree, like you would think taking Cole off the slate just opens up more Woodruff to get to. We have him as the 6th highest projected pitcher. The problem, and he's not that expensive, he's only 9,400. The issue is that you have so many guys that are just lower than him that are a lot cheaper. Lower projected that are a lot cheaper. So you're going to, in a lot of lineups, it's kind of just like, oh, well, I can play Woodruff here, or I can improve bats and drop down a pitcher. But I really like the idea of him just because he's a really good pitcher. He has the highest strikeout percentage on the slate now without Garrett Cole. Pitching in Colorado clearly is awful, but he's just not getting any ownership. So to your point, it's not somebody that I want to take some massive stand on. The comparison I used this morning was that he's the kind of guy that back when I was like hand building lineups and losing money in 2018, I would have just like been like, oh, well, my stand today is going to be Brandon Woodruff. And then one of two things typically happens. One, he pitches like he's in Coors Field and he sucks. Or two, he pitches well, but then like even of the percentage of the time that he pitches well, you're still going to lose when, or at least it's not going to matter. You're not going to get rewarded for your risk when the Bieber, Valdez, Musgrove type guys have good starts and match or beat Woodruff. It just doesn't matter. So it's still a low probability play, but given the talent level there and only 5% projected ownership, I am interested. Of the pitchers ahead of him in top 2 pitcher percentage, which is Bieber, Valdez, Musgrove, Anderson, and Wright, the lowest owned guy of that group is Kyle Wright at 13.4%. So nearly 3 times the ownership going to the lowest owned of the pitchers that are more likely to succeed than Brandon Woodruff.
I hope that I get a little bit more as we get closer to lock. Now, we need to talk about the most ridiculous thing on this slate, and that would be ridiculously correct as well. The Brewers are number 1 in top stack and top value and ownership. I have them 6th in top value, but that doesn't really matter for me in this particular case. They are the very clear number 1 stack. I don't think there's even a way to say that it's someone else. You're going to get 5 Brewers in cash, basically without question. If you don't, let me know your screen name. They're aggressively owned, 28% in the aggregate. I am lighter than the field on the Brewers. I will not be getting up to that 28% mark, but I totally get it. I don't know what else to say for this. It's just everything's wrong about their pricing. They're easy to stack. They look great. It's just a lot on an 11 gamer.
Yeah, exactly. And there are times where maybe I just end up getting even more. I mean, like, for example, yesterday, the Angels were popular, and I ended up overweight on the Angels and then just mixing in low-owned teams with them. Typically on 11-game slates, that doesn't happen quite as much. But I do think there's a good chance for me that these guys end up being my highest-owned players at their respective positions, but that I just don't get quite as much of the field. Using Rowdy Tellez as an example, he's at 32% ownership now. I had said 30 this morning was my guess. But like using him as an example, there's going to be enough lineups that I can make that I think are just good lineups, even with a 32% Rowdy Tellez in there, where maybe I get like 22% Tellez and he ends up being my highest owned first baseman. But then I just kind of can't get enough lineups. Then I run out of lineups where it's just like, okay, well, now we're getting to, I don't want Tellez with this group because it's too much ownership. So that happens for me a lot on these Coors slates where the pricing is wrong. I think it's a mistake to just go in and say, oh, I'm not playing the Brewers. Like, you can make some very good lineups that still have either a Brewer stack and just you're off the board at pitcher. Maybe you play Woodruff. Maybe you go somewhere else. Or maybe you pair them with, I don't know, Texas. Like, I don't like Texas, but like, that's just a team that they're not going to get any ownership. And you can pair the Brewers with Texas. You can pair them with like Baltimore. You can do stuff like that. So, yeah, they look really good. I'm certainly not going to come on and just be like, oh, you can't play the Brewers. They're popular, because I think that's a mistake to look at it that way. I just think that I probably don't get as much as the field because I'm just going to run out of lineups that I can build that are contrarian enough that I want to play them.
I have 10%. That's the 3rd highest mark that I have of any team right now. I'm more than okay with that, but that is obviously well off the pace for the rest of the public. On the opposite side, though, we've got the Rockies 6th in top stack, 11th in ownership. Highest owned guy in the Rockies lineup is Ryan McMahon at 6.7%. I think they're going to come in a little bit higher than this just by default. 3% aggregate owned. I have a hard time believing that the Rockies are going to be well below average ownership on today's slate. So I am getting to the Rockies pretty aggressively. I have more Rockies than I have Brewers at this rate. I might make some tweaks to bring it down a little bit, but I like getting to Colorado on the opposite side, even if it is Woodruff.
Yeah, so do I. It's still a 4.5 implied run total, 4.6 implied run total for the Rockies. That's in line. I mean, Houston's at 4.7 for comparison. The Blue Jays are at 4.3, which is actually weirdly low. I guess it's probably that park. But the point being, it's Brandon Woodruff. It's not a good spot, but they are still in Coors. They do have a 101 WRC plus at home this year. They have like a 180 something ISO at home. And we don't have a lineup yet, as far as I know, but McMahon, Rogers, Crone, Blackman, those guys can all do damage. Grichuk, if he's in there. You mentioned Michael Toglia having like a 240 ISO projection or 220 ISO projection or something. He's
Yeah.
cheap and has some power. So I don't like the idea of targeting Woodruff, but I do like the lack of ownership that's coming into Colorado.
They have the third highest implied total on today's slate. They have 3% aggregate ownership. Average today is 4.5%. I don't understand. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever why their ownership would be this low.
I mean, so I think they're not super expensive, but they're relatively expensive. Like McMahon, Rogers, Crone, Blackman are all at least 4,600 on DraftKings. Grichuk's 4,100. Diaz is 4K. They're not as expensive as like the Dodgers or the Astros or the Blue Jays, but you are still somewhat limited in what you can do around them.
I'm going to have a ton. I'm going to have an absolute ton. So go Colorado tonight. Clearly the game that we need to be attacking, like the most volume should probably be in this game. Got to touch on Julio G's super chat here. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. He said, you guys ever make groups to avoid or minimize getting to players in a stack that will be too highly owned and will get you a different team stack mix? I don't.
So I don't. And it's just one of those like questions like this can be kind of difficult because it all depends on what else you're doing. For me, I am just building a lot of lineups, and then my process for which lineups I'm going to play is typically going to keep me from playing. Like I'm just not going to play lineups that are too popular, basically, as a result of everything else that I do. So there's no need for me to do that. I saw people respond that you can click them out of your stacks in Fantasy Cruncher. I think that is a good approach. Like if you are building lineups in Fantasy Cruncher and you're just trying to build lineups and you're just going to take them straight out of there and play them. Say, you want to get Cleveland stack. That was the example I used earlier where like Jimenez wasn't getting much ownership. If you notice that you're just getting a bunch of Cleveland stacks that are the top five, the five highest owned guys, just take like, Tyler Freeman, who's popular but not very good, for example, and just like remove him from the stack, crunch 5 more, see what you like out of those. I think that is a reasonable way to do it. It's not how I do it because I just don't need to.
Right. Anything else here?
I was just laughing at Candace Reynolds. The 4.7 projection isn't guaranteed. No, nothing else.
As we mentioned before, though, you should be getting 5 Brewer stacks or five Brewers in cash. It doesn't seem likely that you're going to be getting to Rockies, but if you're somehow not getting to the Brewers, reevaluate that cash process.
So in the top 100 lineups that I ran with the Stokastic projections, it's like 5 Brewers everywhere. Tellez in 97, Wong in 91, Peterson in 83, Yelich in 72, Renfroe in 67, Adames in 67, Narvaez in 10, Mitchell in 9. I think that's all of the Brewers that you can play.
Yeah, mine's not too different. Are you getting Bieber, Valdez, 100%?
Valdez 100%, Bieber 63, Myers 32, Musgrove 3, Anderson 2.
Okay, it's looking like Bieber and Valdez in just about everything. Yelich, Adames, Tellez, Renfroe, Peterson, all 60-something% and higher. No other bats getting there. Cubs bats are the other ones that are showing up pretty aggressively.
Yeah. After the 1, 2, 3, 4, the top 6, the 6 highest used hitters are all Milwaukee. Then it's Yan Gomes and Franmil Reyes. Then it drops off a bit more and gets to like Trey Turner, Lars Nootbaar, Oscar Gonzalez.
There we go. Angels and Tigers. 4.4 run implied total for the Angels, 3.9 for the Tigers. Mike Myers and Eduardo Rodriguez going in this one. Erod, 2% owned, seems about right here. Decent strikeout matchup against the Angels, but don't really need it. What I do need is some Mike Myers here. 4,800, 21% owned, which, do I love it? Probably not. Do I understand it? Absolutely. I have about 15%. I'm happy to get whatever I get here because it's the Tigers. It's a good spot.
Your Rocky stack just got a little bit less appealing.
Why do I have to play for them today?
Yeah, pretty much. Jonathan Daza is hitting second instead of Brendan Rodgers.
Okay.
So I mean that does discount them. He's a $2,300 outfielder. He just sucks. Um, there was also the question about playing Keston Hiura over Rowdy Tellez. That is typically a strategy that I find really interesting in tournaments where you can kind of leverage the fact that you can only play one first baseman. It does kind of stand out today though that Tellez is projected for 32% ownership, but Hiura is still at 21. So yeah, you're getting a lower owned player, but Hiura is also not nearly as good as Tellez, and he's still popular. As far as did you ask about the pitching here?
Myers.
Okay, yeah, Myers at 4,800. It's just a broken price. I don't know what to make of him because for most of his career, he's been a reliever and he's put up good numbers as a reliever in previous seasons. This year, he's primarily been a reliever as well. He's only made 2 starts so far, but his strikeout percentage is down to 21.3% overall this year from 28.6% last year. XFIP this year, 4.75. Last year was 3.81. Expected ERA this year, 5.18. Last year was 3.78. He's allowed 2.58 home runs per 9 this year compared to 1.32 last year. He's doing all of this while only having a 264 BABIP as well. So, although I guess that's probably in part because he's giving up so many home runs. But I don't really know what to make of him. I do know $4,800 is too cheap for this guy against the Tigers. It would be too cheap for most pitchers that are remotely close to being a major league caliber starting pitcher against the Tigers. It's just a really cheap price tag. It's going to let you get whatever you want pretty much into your lineups.
I have him projected ahead of Erod. So if you're ever curious on why I would get to Myers over Erod, or Myers over like basically anybody above that spot.
We have him as the 14th highest. Wait, that's not right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have him as the 8th highest projected pitcher on the slate on DraftKings at 13.7 DraftKings points.
I got him 10th, basically the same projection either way. Whether it's 10th, 8th, it doesn't make much of a difference. It's not last like salary.
Yeah, there's a bunch of pitchers in that range, but like the difference is, you look at the salaries and it's just like of all these pitchers that are lumped together, 8,500, 7,500, 9,200, 6,800, 4,800.
Yeah, it stands out. Does the hitting stand out in this game? Angels are 9th in top stack, 7th in ownership. Tigers are 11th, but they are 2nd in value, so they're pulling some ownership as well. I've got a little bit of both sides. I'm like basically right around the field. These guys are filler for me.
Yeah, I am interested in the bats here just because I don't think either pitcher is great. And it is still warm in LA. It looks like it's like 88 degrees here. The ball should be carrying more than normal. Both teams are getting a little bit of ownership, but not anything too concerning. When you look at the Tigers, Eric Haas leads the way at 10%. Riley Green's next at 6.5. I mentioned the power issues that Mike Myers has had this year. 238 expected ISO to lefties, 191 to righties. You're never going to be excited about getting to the Tigers, but Green is cheap. Carpenter's cheap. The whole lineup is cheap, but Green and Carpenter in particular, I think, stand out. And then on the other side, you are getting better versions of the Angels lineup recently. Not only do you have Trout and Ohtani, who are always good plays, but Rengifo has multi-position eligibility. He's been hitting well. He's only 3,900. Taylor Ward's down to 3,200. Fletcher's got multi-position eligibility leading off. Joe Adell's got a bunch of power, even though he doesn't typically make contact. And Eduardo Rodriguez is another pitcher that I just don't really know what to make of him this year because he had the health issues in 2020, but then he bounced back last year, struck out like 27% of hitters. He got pretty unlucky in terms of BABIP and a bunch of like underlying numbers liked him a lot more last year than his actual numbers. But the strikeouts were there and everything. This year, he missed some time because of personal issues, but he still made 11 starts. And he's only struck out 19.5% of hitters with a 10.5% walk percentage. He's just not been the same pitcher this year. I don't really know what to make of that either, but it does, I think, add a little bit of upside to the Angels.
Yeah, I'm happy to get to so I've got 6% Angels, 7% of my 5-man stacks are Angels. That'll work for me. Similar story on the opposite side for the Tigers. This is a spot where I'm okay to get some value, and you get the benefit of having 20% of the lineups going to Mike Myers, who, while I think is a good option, is getting the benefit of that ownership because of his price tag and not necessarily because of his skill set. So that works for me.
I have a question for you that I'm kind of curious about because I go back and forth with it, especially on slates like this. Do you use salary floors in Fantasy Cruncher for MLB?
I do.
Okay, so do I.
45,000 though. So
okay, I normally do like 48 because I've sort of just noticed that most of the time when I run stuff, like my exposures don't really change too much if I use a higher salary cap floor. And
Yeah.
it's just like I would rather them be in that lineup as opposed to like the 45K one, especially because I'm not really worried about dupes. But I just kind of like think about it on slates like this where, in theory, Mike Myers could be one of the top scoring pitchers paired with the Brewers. I mean, ownership wise, this isn't really a team that I would like, but the point I'm getting at is like you could just where the Brewers pricing is bad and Mike Myers pricing is bad, you could realistically just get a really good team that doesn't cost that much.
Is the Orioles pitcher good? I showed up late. That comment came from God. Aren't you everywhere always?
The Orioles pitcher is okay in real life. I don't think he's a very good DFS pitcher today.
Yeah, so I use 45,000, and it's just through a little bit of trial and error. So when I run 2,000 lineups, if I run it without that salary cap, normally like 2, 3, maybe upwards of 10 of my 150 will get in under that 45K mark. But 80% of the lineups generated are 45,000 or above. So I'm kind of just like 80-20ing it, cutting it off at 45. If I lose, I'm losing out on like 3 or 4 lineups there. That's fine. I think I'm probably making up for it by just generating slightly better lineups as well by putting in that salary cap.
Yeah, that's how I think
salary
about
floor.
it too. Because the other issue that I sort of run into is if I don't use a salary floor, you start, because baseball is just so weird with the scoring, you start to get like all the cheap players projected as under-owned just because they could theoretically hit a home run. And then you go through everything, you build the lineups, and it almost like starts to favor lineups that are using less salary.
I also don't have a choice really, because I'm using like, let's just say on average 600 randomness for each hitter,
right,
and most pitchers, like it's just naturally going to generate some true wild shit. And I just don't need it. I don't need to use $32,000. Like that's a lineup that doesn't need to be there.
Yeah. And I mean, for what it's worth too, like I do typically pay attention. Like I adjust it too if like it's shorter slates, but on a 12-game slate, like I think it is worth noting still in those top 100 lineups that I just built, even though 32% of them had Mike Myers, they're all still using close to the salary cap.
Larry wants to know if we use salary floors for other sports. I do. It just sort of depends on the sport. Like MMA, I don't.
Yeah, MMA, I don't. I think MMA might be the only one that I don't. Baseball is
I will for NBA,
second.
but nothing crazy.
What'd you say?
I do for NBA, but like not.
Oh, NBA, I use
same sort of process.
I use a tight one for NBA.
Yeah, I don't want to leave that much salary on the floor or on the table in NBA.
NBA, I think I normally use like 49.5.
I'll allow a little bit more than that, but like it's not 45K like it is in baseball.
Right.
That's for sure.
Yeah, MMA I don't use one. MLB, I'll use 47, 48, kind of depending on what the slate looks like. NBA I use a really tight one. Golf I think I use like 49 or something. It really just kind of depends on how much salary. I don't know how to word this. Correlates probably isn't the right word. How much salary correlates to like the chances of a player being the actual top scorer. Because the thinking is, and the reason why, like, for example, I use a tighter one in NBA is, yes, there's going to be underpriced guys in NBA, but if I build an NBA lineup that only uses $48,800 and it's outside of the month of April, I probably can just upgrade one guy and I'm just going to get I'm going to get a better player that is almost always going to outscore that other guy. Whereas like baseball is different because Andrew Velazquez can beat Mike Trout any given day. That doesn't happen in basketball. It does happen in MMA. It happens in golf, but not really. Like, not to the extent that you want lineups where you're just leaving a bunch of money.
Got to hit on this one quickly, and I don't really have an answer. Devin John with the super chat. Who to start in the Pirates-Mets game? I don't even know anything about that game.
Are they playing? I mean, I
assume it's not part of this slate.
It's definitely not. It's definitely not part of this slate. I don't know.
Not something we're covering. Sorry, man.
Like, I couldn't tell you.
I don't know who pitches.
It doesn't even show up. Like, if I click Showdown, it doesn't even come up with a Mets game.
Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, man. Can't help you out there.
That game started. Oh wait, no, that's tomorrow. Yeah, so it's at 6:35, but it's Taijuan Walker versus Mitch Keller. But like, yeah, it's not. I don't even see a Showdown slate for it on DraftKings.
Yeah, for Showdown bait, everybody. You should start everybody. Padres and Diamondbacks. 4-run implied total for the Pods, 3.2 for the Diamondbacks. Joe Musgrove, Merrill Kelly, No ownership going to Kelly at 9,200 makes some sense. There's better options out there. Musgrove, 9,500, 29% owned. I'm actually a little bit lighter on Musgrove, but I'm not surprised because the relationship between Musgrove's ownership and Wright's ownership doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Still very happy to get to Joe Musgrove, though.
Yeah, I don't really get that difference either. Arizona's not a bad offense. They have like their active roster has about a 99 WRC plus. The lineup I would think is probably a bit higher than that. The lineup they're running out there today looks pretty solid. Rojas, Varsho, Marte, Walker, McCarthy, Corbin Carroll, still 2,500. Carson Kelly, Alec Thomas. This is a tough lineup to strike out. They do have power. They still only have a 3.1 implied run total. I like Musgrove here. I don't really get why he's getting 26% ownership and Kyle Wright against Oakland is getting 13. Like I was even looking earlier thinking maybe Kyle Wright is like going to start being on a pitch count or something and I'd missed it, but I can't find anything about it. So I think it's just people for some reason really prefer Musgrove here.
Yeah, I think they're basically equal today. So,
I mean, and we have Musgrove projected a little under 2 points higher, but I don't think that doesn't equate to a 2-to-1 ownership gap.
I have Wright by a half a point. So either way, I'm going to get to Musgrove. Like, I have 19% Musgrove. I still like him, but I'm going to be under that number if it stays at 29. 15th in ownership for the Padres, 22nd for the Diamondbacks. Neither one of them are in the top 10 in top stack. I'm just not getting here. But if I find any Padres bats in lineups, I'm going to be okay with it.
I feel that way about both sides. I don't like the matchup for either side. I think Merrill Kelly, while he's not a great DFS pitcher, I think he is a good real life pitcher. 114 expected ISO to righties this year, 137 to lefties. But if you get to some Soto, Machado, Bell, Cronenworth, there's clearly nothing wrong with that. They're all good hitters, Soto and Machado in particular. But then on the other side too, with Arizona, I'm not looking to target against Joe Musgrove. He's a good pitcher. He's allowed a 105 expected ISO to lefties this year, 129 to righties. But at the same time, if I get some $2,500 Corbin Carroll, who has a bunch of power and speed and is cheap and hitting sixth, $3,600 Jake McCarthy hitting fifth, I don't have any issues with that either. I don't think I get to a lot of Arizona stacks because the top of the order is relatively expensive. But Corbin Carroll in particular, 2,500, I do like. It's just he's an outfielder, so there's plenty of outfielders I like.
Anything else in this game?
Nope.
3.2 run implied total for the A's, 4.7 for the Braves. Cole Irvin and Kyle Wright. Just sort of talked about Kyle Wright here. Irvin unowned, shouldn't be owned. Wright 16% owned at 9,700. I'm a little bit over the field here, mostly because of Musgrove. The relationship between their ownership is going to sort of tell the tale. I assume I have like 40-ish% combined of the two of them, somewhere in that neighborhood. It'll just break down to where they stand, but he looks good against the A's in Oakland.
Yeah, completely agree. I get that he projects a little bit behind Musgrove, but I don't get why he's not getting more ownership here. The A's have a 3.1 implied run total. They're just a really bad offense. Kyle Wright's got about a 24% strikeout percentage this year, 3.26 xFIP. He's been pitching well recently too, and I only mention that because, again, I just can't figure out why he isn't getting more ownership. I like him at half the ownership of Musgrove. I think that they are pretty comparable.
I agree. I'm happy to have them both. Not going to be getting to the Oakland A's here against Kyle Wright, will you?
No. And somebody mentioned it. No Rengifo in the Angels lineup tonight makes that stack less appealing.
Okay. How do you feel about the Braves? 3rd in top stack, 9th in ownership. I have them 3% lower in top stack today. This is just not a team that I'm really getting to. I have a very, very minimal amount of Atlanta. I don't like attacking this park. What do you do here?
It is worth noting it's 88 degrees in Oakland today, apparently.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's just going to play smaller than it normally does. Still, like, I don't think it's going to make it a great park to hit it, but it's just going to play probably more neutral. And I do like this spot. Cole Irvin, I like the matchup, I should say. Irvin, 215 expected ISO to righties this year, 169 to lefties. I mentioned it this morning that, him pitching in Oakland, you're not expecting him to stop getting lucky, basically. But you have enough power, right-handed power in this Braves lineup. I still think they can take advantage. I do like the fact that it's warmer here. They have a 4.9 implied run total. Like, that is high for a game in Oakland. So I like getting to the Braves at their current ownership. We have them third in top stack percentage. We have them getting 5% aggregate ownership. Again, I think they're a relatively difficult team to get to in terms of salary. Well, I shouldn't say difficult to get to, but you're paying quite a bit more for them than you are, say, the Brewers. But you do have Mike Myers to help offset that. You can go down in the order if you need to. You have 3K Vaughn Grissom batting sixth. You have $2,400 Marcell Ozuna batting eighth. You can use those guys to offset some of that salary at the top as well.
Anything else in this one, Braves or A's?
Nope.
2 to go here. Mariners and White Sox, 4.1 run implied total for the Mariners, 3.4 for the White Sox. Logan Gilbert and Johnny Cueto. No ownership going to Cueto. Gilbert at 16.5% right now, 8,500 against the White Sox. I have some, got about 11%. So I'm happy to get at least a little bit here of Logan Gilbert. He's just a guy, though, to me. I think he looks, God, I can't even remember who we talked about that was similar. I think he's very similar to like the same style of play as Jose Quintana today. Like, he is not my priority. He's multiple guys down the list of that. He's just going to show up in like an arbitrary 10 to 20 for me.
Yeah, it's like him, Tyler Anderson, I think is another decent comp.
Same.
It's a good park. He's down to 15% ownership in our most recent update as well. Good park, good pitcher. Hasn't quite put up the strikeout numbers that I was expecting this year, but he's still at 22%, 3.89 xFIP. Average matchup against the White Sox. They once again are leading off Elvis Andrus, so you're basically starting the game down 1-0 if you're Logan Gilbert, but it's not a very impressive lineup, just pretty much average. Not a good park to hit in. 3.4 implied run total. Gilbert looks fine. It's just a matter of there's going to be a lot of lineups where I can either find the money to get to the Kyle Wright, Joe Musgrove, Shane Bieber, Framber Valdez type guys, or just pay half the salary for Mike Myers. The Mike Myers price really just screws up the entire mid-range of pitching.
Really does. What about Cueto?
I don't really have any case there. He's been good at limiting power this year. This park obviously helps that as well, but only a 15.6% strikeout percentage. That's lower than every starter on the slate with the exception of Wade Miley. 4.3 xFIP. Not a great matchup against the Mariners either.
14th in top stack for the Mariners, 16th in ownership. White Sox are 17th and 19th. I see no priorities here. Individual bats I could see picking off, but this doesn't feel like a game where I'm trying to get to offense.
Yeah, no real priorities for me either. Gilbert has had more issues with righties this year, lower strikeout percentage and a 181 expected ISO, but that doesn't mean a ton for me. It's still not a great park for power. The White Sox still just aren't a very appealing lineup. On the other side, Cueto, like I said, has been actually good at limiting power. 147 expected ISO to righties, 137 to lefties. Clearly, you can play Julio Rodriguez whenever you want, but I doubt that I get to much of either of these offenses.
Then we close it out. Guys, hit that like button one last time. 39 more puts us up at 200. I feel like that's a decent destination here with 860 plus people. Dodgers and Giants. 5.5 run implied total for the Dodgers, 3.2 for the Giants. Tyler Anderson, and I have Jarlin Garcia now as the long man. I honestly, legitimately have no idea who's going to be pitching outside of the
he prefers Harlan, but
is it Harlan? No, I'm going to go Jarlin. It's a soft J. Yogging. Anyway,
I'm pretty sure it's John Brady.
He's not
opening.
Yeah, you're definitely right for that.
And then Harlan Garcia behind them, but I think basically it's a bullpen game. Garcia threw like an inning last time out. I think it's just a true bullpen game, which we've talked about it a lot. It's not. That's not what it used to be. You're not getting some AAA level starter going out there for 5 innings and and just getting lit up. But it is still the Dodgers. They do still have a 6 implied run total. It's warm here as well. They are really good. They're also expensive. 10% chance of being the top stack, 7% chance or 7% ownership, less than 1% chance of being the top value stack. So you are sacrificing, but there's plenty of value bats you can mix in with them. You can obviously use Mike Myers for a team like this. So I do like the Dodgers here. You just have to find a way to make the salaries work.
Yeah, I'm getting here. They're second in top stack, 4th in ownership, but a 3% gap. You need a little bit of value somewhere. I think we've found plenty of different value bats or pitching options. I have 16% Dodgers right now. They are 20% of my 5-man stacks. I am happily getting to LA, particularly in this park, massive home run park factors. So I'm loading up on the Dodgers for tonight. This is going to be my second most exposed stack. And I'm still getting to the Giants as well on the opposite side of Anderson's 18% ownership. I don't mind going up against Anderson. I've got 6% of a 2% owned Giants team.
Yeah, I don't really like the spot for them, but I didn't like it last night either. And then kind of once I saw the lineups that I was getting with them, it made a lot of sense. And I think it could be the same thing here. They're not overly expensive. Anderson's a decent pitcher, 139 expected ISO to righties this year, 9% or 19% strikeout percentage against them. But you are getting the park upgrade for San Francisco, hitting in heat in LA. Brinson isn't a very good hitter, did homer twice last night, which is really nice for me. But 2,800 leading off, that's a cheap price tag. JD Davis is only 3,100. Longoria is only 3,300. They do play the same position, which is annoying. Thairo Estrada is not a bad option either. Neither is Wilmer Flores. So it's not a bad spot to get to, but it's not one that I expect to go too crazy. They do still only have a 3 implied run total here.
All right, let's sum it up. Favorite pitchers?
Valdez, Bieber. I like Kyle Wright.
I can't disagree with Valdez and Beaver. Wright is my third most exposed guy. I actually think I just said Beaver and not Bieber. So we might want to run that one back and clip that. But favorite stacks?
I mean, Milwaukee's on a different, they're their own like entity on the slate. Outside of them, I like Atlanta. I like the Dodgers. I like the Blue Jays. If you need some cheaper, I do have interest in Baltimore. I think they're interesting.
Rockies and Dodgers are my two biggest stands over the field at this moment. I am getting to the Brewers. They're my third most exposed team, but I am quite a bit under the field. Biggest fade, the Cleveland Guardians. That'll do it, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Don't go anywhere. Hit that like button right now so we get up over 200. MLB Live Before Lock coming up next, taking you all the way up till 7:05. Thank you to Drafters for sponsoring this show. We're out of here. Good luck. Peace.
All right, that time once again. What's up, everybody? Ben Razza here for OddsShop. We're bringing you my favorite bet of the day on this Wednesday, August 31st, the last day of the month. We flipped the calendar, September. New month, NFL will be here soon enough, but in the meantime, we're going to scan the board and try to find the best bet possible. So if you're hopping in for the first time, checking out, welcome to OddsShopper. Join us here. Right, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel if you've been having fun. If you've been tailing and making money on this video, we're on fire right now. Won again last night. The Minnesota
Twins
moles, man. Rolled through the Red Sox. We are perfect on the week. And
I lost $600.
You want to show that support? Hit us with the comments.
with
an
overlay
subscribe to the channel. It's all free. It really helps us, and it helps you guys.
I would have jammed away in that too
outside this video, and I really want to build this team up.
First two goals, so I was just like, "Whoa, these guys are going to be so highly owned." I said it was just ridiculous. They only ended up like 15%. Everybody jammed pretty much every other spot. But of course, Mbappe scores 2 in the first 30 minutes.
You see it on the screen. New users, get over there and deposit. You get the risk-free bet of up to $1,000. You take your shot.
No, the exact opposite.
Extra money in the bankroll. If you miss, you get it back in free bets. A great opportunity to take advantage of what will not last forever. A great opportunity. Now, where are we going today? We're going back to baseball. I don't really like baseball, I'll be honest, but we keep winning and we got to stick with it. The board is there. There's a lot of options. I've scanned it. We're going real chalk, but it doesn't matter when it cashes. I don't care what we bet as long as we win. Now, Rockies, Braves, mega mismatch. Colorado Rockies, 56-74, 20-42 away from home. That is awful. The Braves, 79-51, stellar, 42-25 at home. Fantastic. They did lose last night as massive favorites in this exact spot. That was kicking off their homestand. A bad loss for them. I don't really see that happening again, but of course, we've got a lot to get to and a lot to talk about in terms of finding the right line for the bet. Now, when we talk about these bets, we've always got to talk about the pitching matchups, and that's what we're going to do here. Ryan Feltner on the mound for the Rockies, 2-5, 5.87 ERA, away from home, 0-3, 6.19. Opponent batting average balloons to 308 versus 237 at home. It's not a huge sample, I'll admit that, but again, it's just not good really with any split that we see. It's pretty ugly. I don't really see that changing. Going into Atlanta, this is not an easy spot by any stretch of the imagination. He looks like he could be in for a pretty rough outing. On the other side, for the Braves, Kyle Wright, 16-5, 2.99 ERA, 10-2, 3.05 at home. Opponent batting average is basically the same, 225 versus 236. I guess it's a little split, but he's just great. He's a solid pitcher. He's been showing up all year. And when he takes the mound, the Braves win. They've won 10 of 11 when he started. They haven't lost at home since May when he's been on the mound. He's just been absolutely fantastic. Some of that is outside his control. They're giving him run support, but at the same time, he's giving them ample opportunities to push cross runs and grab wins. Now, anyone, even if you don't know anything about baseball, it's pretty obvious to see that the Braves should win this game. They're north of minus 300. That doesn't do us any good. So, of course, you can go to the run line, but it's actually ballooned to 2.5 at a lot of places. That's a lot. Would I lean that side? Probably. But, again, they're at home. They're not going to bat in the 9th inning. You're asking them to push a bunch of runs.
We'd miss you, though.
Fire Jordan Klein. What's going on, everybody? Welcome. Hi again. You guys are hearing my lovely voice. Glad to seep into the airwaves a little bit early. I'm Eric Lindquist. Excited to be talking this MLB Live Before Lock here. Sponsored by Drafters. I'm alongside my buddy, Player Q DFS on Twitter. Go follow him over there. Yes, Player Q DFS. That is Neil Orfield, the host of the High Stakes podcast, as well as a new full-time member here at Stokastic. I'm excited to have him. I'm especially excited to have him on the show. How you doing, my XFL dude?
I'm doing well. I hope that you and I can do some showdown shows this year, because that was so much fun last year. I don't know my full schedule yet because I'm on vacation Friday through Monday, so I don't know what I'm going to be on. But I hope that you and I are on some more showdown shows this year, because that was a lot of fun last year. And yeah, I just finished recording High Stakes with EMAC less than an hour ago. We finished that recording, so that'll be coming out Friday.
That's beautiful. I was going to say, the only reason you like doing those shows with me is that we built a lineup live together, and you took down a tiebreaker to get a ticket for the Tournament of Champions. So yeah, I was going to say, it's always nice. The very first show I ever did with Josh Engelman, he won $40K at NBA. First time you and I did a show together for Showdown, you ended up winning whatever. First time I did a show with Adam, I think he lost every dollar that he had in his account. So that was great too. So
my first MLB show with Adam, he won $100,000 this year. That was like right at the beginning of the year. He and I were on an MLB show, which I wouldn't say the show went that well. I was the host and didn't go the full time. Like I was right at the end, like ran out of, or had too much time and had to ask like, all right, anybody got any questions? So the show did not go perfectly, but worked out for Adam, winning everything that night.
All right. Well, I love that for Adam. Adam loved that for Adam, that's for sure. We have Jordan Klein producing, in case anybody didn't hear. I think he's producing. I think he's trying. Are you trying, or are you trying to like get me in trouble? What's going on? Oh, that was an EMAC 2024 shirt. We had to show that one off.
I just saw Sherman mention that I'm not wearing pajamas today, so I had to show that I am, in fact, wearing my EMAC 2024 t-shirt.
It's important.
Yep.
However, pajamas and flannel, or pseudo flannel in your case, those are also nice looks.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
It's like when Will Ferrell busts into the thing in Anchorman as he's got like the Paul Bunyan outfit going on.
I just rewatched Anchorman and still don't know what you're talking about.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like one of the dreams, right? No.
I don't have a great memory for movies like you do. You like remember every little thing that happens in a movie. I remember like kind of the things that I found the funniest. For a while, I could tell you everything that happened in Zoolander. I probably can't do that anymore, sadly.
Well, I don't even know where to go with this. I had like 48 quotes. I was just like, which one do I want to pull out of the Rolodex? How about this? Hansel.
So hot
Hansel. Right, okay, let's just start the show because
right.
I don't know where else to go, and I'm an idiot. So anything stand out to you on the slate before we dig in?
Yeah, it's a Coors slate, so I would say that is
makes a lot of sense.
The Coors game has an 11-run implied total in the game. The next highest is 8.5. So Coors is looking pretty sweet right now.
Yeah, welcome to September 6th when things start cooling down other places, but it's still an inferno here in LA. It's an inferno in Denver. West Coast is getting bashed with some hot weather. How's Jordan Klein doing over there? I'm going to blame all of his transgressions at the beginning of the show on the fact that he's got a little bit of heat wave going on in his life. You probably need some water or a beer from both. Oh, that's what. Oh, we're rusty. That's what it is. Oh, I'm sorry. What have you been busy doing? I believe you're my personal caddy is what you are, right? You're basically just carrying my clothes. Mr. Gilmore, I'm your caddy. All right, let's start, shall we? Let's talk pitching. Do you have anything to add, Neil?
Not overarching thoughts. We can start talking pitching whenever. Ready when you are.
I like DFS. We should probably talk DFS. Eric DFS. Glitched, lumberjack vibe. God, that's Neil. That's Neil. He's too beautiful for school. It's incredible. All right, Framber Valdez, not my favorite strikeout guy on an entire or on any slate. Pretty much, the ground ball rate is out of control, north of 65% the last however many years. He's just absurd in that regard. We have Shane Bieber up there as well at 10-6. He's a guy that gets a fantastic matchup against Kansas City, even though Kansas City of late has shown a little bit of improvement. Those are our only two guys that we have in the 10K range. If you had to build with one of those in mind, who do you prefer between the two?
It'd be Shane Bieber for me. He has a 25.8% strikeout rate relative to Valdez at 22.6. So I just think the upside is higher for Bieber. The matchup isn't bad against the Royals, of course. They both have great matchups. I just think that Bieber is the higher upside pitcher for DFS purposes. So if I had to choose one, it would be Bieber. Now I'm just checking the top pitchers tool. Bieber's coming in a little bit underowned, very slightly lower odds of being a top two pitcher. I'm surprised it's even lower, but coming in at 34% ownership relative to 38.4 for Framber. So don't mind that either. It'd be Bieber for me. How about you?
Definitely going to be Bieber for me. Framber Valdez, I don't know what it is. And I wouldn't call myself a hater because I think he's fantastic at what he does. I think he's a phenomenal pitcher, but I just don't like him for fantasy purposes all that much. And a lot of the value you get from him is him going 7, 8 innings. It seems like every single time over 100 pitches. And the strikeout stuff has started to show up. I mean, he had this exact same matchup on the road in Texas. Now he gets them at home against Texas. But I will say, I do think the ballpark at home for him is a little bit worse than what it would be there in Arlington. So I'm just kind of neutral on Framber Valdez. I don't really have a stance. I have a very strong stance on Shane Bieber. He is definitely going to be my priority guy. I don't think we're seeing like the Cy Young form for him, but we have 4 of his last 5 games now, 7+ or exactly 7 innings. And the strikeouts, a real prominent 9 and 11 Ks. I also think that we haven't seen as many like crazy 32, 35 DraftKings points performances. And that's kind of a result of 0 run support. His last 3 outings, he only has 2 runs of run support. I think there's positive regression coming for him there. I think that might make his box scores look a little worse than what I think they should be compared to how, just based on how well he's pitched. So I'm absolutely on the Shane Bieber train for today. So I'm glad to hear that you feel the exact same way. The 9K range gets really, really interesting for DraftKings purposes, though. We have Kyle Wright, Joe Musgrove, Brandon Woodruff, Merrill Kelly. Merrill Kelly's kind of my boy, 0.5%, not hard to be over that. But the priority guys, Kyle Wright and Joe Musgrove, I'm not sure if there's somebody that you're landing on quite a bit in the 9K range. And I guess Brandon Woodruff, 5.7%. Do you have a favorite target on DraftKings at 9K?
It's really not a strong pitching slate. I mean, there's, I guess, a number of decent pitchers in decent spots, but there's no like really slam dunk pitchers to me today. I think in the 9K range, Woodruff looks pretty good. He's in Coors, so he's not going to get any ownership. That makes sense. But coming in at 6.1% projected ownership, 11.3% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on the slate. I'll take those numbers. And then Tyler Anderson, sorry, he's in the 8K range. Kyle Wright going up against Oakland looks good at 9,700. Just, you can't ask for a much better matchup and ballpark situation. He's getting 15.7% projected ownership, 14.5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on the slate. If you get over the field on Kyle Wright, I think he's relatively safe, so I don't mind that at all. I think that's where I would go first. Joe Musgrove does have the highest odds of being a top 2 pitcher at 18.6 of that group, but then he has a 29.1% ownership share. So I slightly prefer the others, but I don't know. It's kind of splitting hairs for me. Do you have a strong preference among the pitchers in the 9K range?
I'm kind of going back and forth a little bit. And I think Joe Musgrove is a really good talking point because this Arizona lineup, I know that I talked about it for quite a while with Adam yesterday. There just aren't as many strikeouts as you would expect. I mean, Corbin Carroll, if he gets in that lineup, he's struck out north of 30% so far in the bigs in a very, very small sample size. But a lot of these guys are sub 22, 23% strikeout guys. And I do think Joe Musgrove has looked better in a lot of regards. So I have to have at least a little bit of interest going his direction. But I think the guy that's going to show up for me the most ends up being Brandon Woodruff going up against Colorado. And I know that it's not a very high success type play. I mean, 11.3% top 2 pitcher percentage, but I mean, it just feels like 9,400 with Brandon Woodruff here has not been the same kind of pitcher here this season compared to what we've seen out of him in recent years, or specifically last year. But I still think that the strikeouts can be there. I mean, he's north of a 28% strikeout guy, 28.7% here on the season. And you're going to give him, to me, sub 6%. I know it's a really tough game environment, not just ballpark, but it is hot out there. But this bottom of the lineup is just fascinating. Toglia, Diaz, Montero, Trejo, a lot of guys I don't know. And that generally bodes well when you have an elite pitcher, which is still what I think Brandon Woodruff can be. Yeah, it's going to be a difficult spot, and he's got a sub 12% top two pitcher percentage, but I don't think that there's a lot of leverage that I can find on this kind of a slate with pitcher. And if you want to still be able to play some Brewers bats and you still want to get to some other guys, I think that he's the cleanest path to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And I mean, yeah, Brandon Woodruff is 9,400, so he's kind of right in the middle range of those 9K pitchers. But I mean, he's even in Colorado, Brandon Woodruff can strike out this team pretty easily. So I am totally with you. I think Brandon Woodruff does make a lot of sense just as a pitcher who is very good, and people aren't going there because of the matchup. And obviously it's not the matchup, the ballpark. People are not going to Brandon Woodruff as much as they should. But as you said, the Rockies lineup is not great. Yeah, a lot of these guys are guys that are not players I've heard of prior to this year. Some of them I'm seeing. Totally, I don't think I've seen that name in my life before just now. So, I mean, I guess I shouldn't be judging him based on my lack of knowledge of him, but generally I can assume that players I haven't heard of most of the time are not going to be great major league hitters. So yeah, I love the matchup. I love that nobody's going there. I think I'm with you on Woodruff.
He also is kind of just a primary, just throws his four-seam fastball 38.7% of the time, the sinker 22.2%, and obviously a sinker won't sink as much there at altitude. But he's still giving up a 274 expected batting average with that pitch. And the changeup curveball slider, I mean, the slider's been effective, but he's only throwing it 10% of the time. A lot of these breaking pitches are just kind of additional pieces for him. He's still just going to be chucking high 90s fastballs. I mean, he's average mile per hour, 96% on the season, or 96 miles per hour, excuse me. Just makes a lot of sense to be getting to him when nobody else wants to touch him because it's Colorado. And we'll get to the stacks as well. I think that they make a lot of sense, but I kind of let you just jump the gun a tiny bit. You talked about Tyler Anderson, but this is where I think it gets fascinating. This 8K range, Mike Myers will finish out with, of course, but Logan Gilbert and Tyler Anderson, both of them garnering right around 15% ownership. And once again, the name of the game is what you're going to be doing with the Brewers bats today, because they have significantly, by far the highest ownership across the board, highest stack score, highest top stack. You better find some contrarian pitching options if you're going to try to get to some of them. And I'm still going to land on some Milwaukee, but I have a preference between Gilbert and Anderson, and it sounds like it's the same as yours. Who do you prefer between the two?
I mean, Tyler Anderson is cheaper. They both have relatively tough matchups against the Giants and the White Sox, but neither team, the White Sox have a 3.4 run implied total, the Giants at 3.2. Tyler Anderson at 8,100. He only has a 19.5 strikeout rate so far this year, whereas Logan Gilbert is at a 22% strikeout rate he's 8,500. So you have to pay up a little bit more for Logan Gilbert. So I think I'm going to have to look at the top pitchers tool to break the tie for me here. I think I prefer.
I was going to say, I heard you say Tyler Anderson earlier. You're like, oh, he's 8K. So I assumed that was going to be the same one. And I like Tyler Anderson more than I like Logan Gilbert today. I mean, if Seattle's the dead last ballpark, I didn't even realize this until I started doing a lot of these betting VODs for certain specific things, because it's usually baked into the projections, and it still plays decent enough for home runs, still below expectation amongst all 30 major league ballparks. But Seattle is dead last in terms of run creation over a 3-year rolling sample size on Baseball Savant. That's kind of wild when you think about how good this lineup is for Seattle and everything else here. And that's what's helped Logan Gilbert quite a bit. Obviously, the White Sox have huge splits between righties and lefties. Logan Gilbert being a righty, it's the worst side of it. But he's still giving up nearly a 46% hard hit percentage, a 254 expected batting average, and just a 22% K percentage. I feel like even based off of what we saw yesterday, I mean, we saw Andrew Heaney get annihilated. Tyler Anderson, I think, just has the profile of a guy who's going to go a lot further into this game. He's got a 2.5% difference in terms of K percentage, but I look at the lineup for San Francisco of what it could be. They're going to have Lewis Brinson leading off again, Yeah, we saw him hit 2 home runs yesterday, but he will strike out a ton. We saw it in Miami. He's at 36.4%, very small sample size this season. You get JD Davis north of 33%. You get a lot of guys, Evan Longoria, 26.2%. A lot of opportunities where you can maybe sneak in a couple. And just in terms of going deeper into this game, I think he has a better chance of doing it than a standard matchup here for Tyler Anderson.
Yeah, I think I am on the same page as you, looking at it a little bit closer. Tyler Anderson is has higher odds of being a top 2 pitcher, and the ownership is very slightly higher than Logan Gilbert, and he's cheaper. So yeah, I think overall I have a slight preference for Tyler Anderson. It's not a strong lean for me, but I do lean to Tyler Anderson as well. And of course, having the Dodgers backing him increases his odds of winning. So love that as well.
Hold up. We will not have any Neil slander in the chat. That would be absurd because he's my Minnesota brethren. He is maker of fine cheeses, and let's see, what Paul Bunyan's son himself, I believe.
Do you think this is NBA champion Danny Green?
That'd be pretty great, wouldn't it?
I would be kind of cool. I'd love to have a feud.
Honestly, Danny Green takes a lot of shit for a dude who, I mean, he got shipped up in Toronto, right?
He's a great player. Yeah,
he's a great player at what he does. 3-and-D, but also, I guess you have to be able to make threes in order to be a 3-and-D guy, but that's a different conversation for a different day. Right. Danny Green, though, thanks for being here. And Spurs, he shipped up at the Spurs too. Man, Danny Green, good to be Danny Green in life. He did not
championship swallow him.
Yeah, he's pretty good at basketball. He's good at
modern Robert Horry.
I'm going to go with no. That's a big fat no. Let's talk Mike Myers, because this is kind of the other guy on DraftKings before we start breaking into other segments. I mean, we can discuss Jose Quintana. I really don't have a ton of interest at 7,500, even against Washington. He's not my favorite pitcher to be getting to. I do have a little Kyle Bradish against Toronto. That feels disgusting, but Adley Rutschman, maybe that's a thing. Maybe he's got a personal caddy, just like I have Jordan Klein, but Mike Myers, 4,800, 38.5% top 2 value percentage, and a 20.9% ownership share over on DK. I get it, but do we really need those kind of savings on this slate? I'm not sure. How do you feel about Mike Myers, who's just not a good righty, but Detroit is obviously dead last, 71 WRC plus against righties this season?
Yeah, so we got a question in chat about whether we would use Mike Myers as a streamer in season long. And my answer is yes, it's a great spot. He's a fine pitcher. Really, the only thing to not love about him on for DFS purposes, actually, there are 2 things. The first being he's getting 21.6% projected ownership. That's a little bit high relative to his odds of being one of the top scoring pitchers. The other being, as you alluded to, we really don't need him because the Brewers are just so cheap. I guess if you want to get contrarian with your bats, if you want to play a Dodgers stack, a full, like the best Dodgers stack, maybe then you do need Mike Myers. And in that case, I think it's totally fine to play him because the Dodgers are not getting a ton of ownership anyway. So I guess I'm coming around to, yes, there are spots where you can play Mike Myers. You're not going to need him in like cash because you can just play the Brewers, who are extremely cheap. But if you're playing someone like the Dodgers, I think it makes some sense to go to Mike Myers.
Okay. Just, I can't really find myself getting to any today. It just comes down to I like getting up to some of these pitchers 9K, 10K, and I don't think it's all that difficult to. And you think about it from a rake perspective, can he have a good outing? And is he a decent enough streamer if you're looking for somebody for a year long? Sure. But I mean, he's also a guy that's only gotten up over 90 pitches, I believe, once this entire season. And he had it rolling pretty good at the beginning of that Seattle game. It got out of hand. He ended up giving up 5 earned, went 5 1/3 in that one. But I just don't... I feel like it's a pretty thin play on this large of a slate. Even at 4,800, I just don't feel like I need the savings to go down there and try to make that work with a lot of the stacks that I have the most interest in. And obviously, you don't need him at all to get to Brewers because, God forbid, they were priced appropriately ever. Can we get one Coors slate before the end of the season where we maybe do something normal with them? Or is that just not going to happen? It's not.
It'd be nice. We just have batters priced up, of course, like they did every year until this year. I don't understand what is happening, but yeah, just looking through the Brewers lineup, it's like this is such an easy stack to make, and then you can play just Brewers infielders and then play outfield from some other team. It's just so easy and they're so cheap that it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
That was a good troll by Terry. I was going to say Judge, Kiner Falefa, Marwin Gonzalez. All of these, one of these is different than the other two. I'll let you guys guess which one. But yeah, it was pretty random. I bet the over of that game, and the fact that that didn't come to fruition with back-end homers from those guys, come on. That was sad stuff. But any other pitchers that you're finding yourself landing on here before we move on to stacks, before we take care of a little bit of business, but any other pitcher that you really want to make a case for? Because I have one other that we haven't talked about yet.
Okay, so the answer to the first question, there are no other pitchers that I am going to be playing because I am playing a single entry tonight in the $2,500.
Really?
$2,500 million. Yeah, I'm giving it a shot. So
that's
going to be my night. Riding
Are we building this live on the stream and then I get 10% like you didn't give me for the Tournament of Champions?
I already built the lineup that I'm going to be playing.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm probably not going to read it off either like I did last time, because I did that the time that we did last time, and then multiple people after the fact. Yeah, but I mean, those people were obviously not in my 4-man tiebreaker contest, but they were in other contests, played the lineup that I read off on air, so I would like to avoid that. You mentioned Kyle Bradish. He looks pretty good in the top pitchers tool, coming in at 1% projected ownership, 8.7% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 12.9% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher. The downside there is, of course, that he is facing Toronto, but he's kind of a high volatility pitcher, so I don't hate going to some Kyle Bradish in a large field GPP. I think he makes some sense there. Talked about Gilbert, Woodruff. I don't know who else do you have interest in? I guess Eduardo Rodriguez.
There we go.
Okay. All right.
Hey,
yeah. Tell me about him.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a guy who just got up to 92 pitches his last time out, which is enough for me. And this Angels lineup, like I do think the Angels are still a team that I'll probably get to some of. But Erod's a guy who's been over a 300 BABIP for this last 3 years. He's been one of the more unlucky pitchers. It would feel like ever. It just seems like he never got a break. You watch Boston play defense this season, and maybe it makes a little bit more sense. But here with Detroit, we haven't really seen a lot of him. But seeing 92 pitches his last time out wasn't super appealing. But we're talking 7,400 for a guy that in years past has shown some strikeout stuff. I'm just encouraged enough, and having just no ownership on him whatsoever against an Angels team that as potent as they can be here with Mike Trout, because he's pretty good at baseball, he does have a 29% strikeout rate. Stassi, 29%. Velasquez, 34% at the back half of that lineup. Taylor Ward, 22.2%. And, of course, Ohtani, north of 24%. There are strikeouts available here up against Erod. He's only been at 19.5% this season. So, on the surface, that doesn't look good. But last season, 27.4%, 24.8% the year before that, 26.4%. He's north of 24% for his career. So maybe he's washed, but he's only 29 years old. I think we see some strikeout upside from him sooner rather than later. So I want to be early to the party. And so I'm definitely going to get to some Erod.
Yep, I'm on the same page with you. He looks great. Great matchup against the Angels. 2.6% projected ownership, 7.2% chance of being one of the 2 top point per dollar scores on the slate. So yeah, I'm very interested in Erod as well. Maybe very is an overstatement. I'm not playing him in my single entry, by the way.
I understand. And again, I'm glad that you're just clarifying for the people, but I absolutely love, this is going to be fun though, when we get over to stacks, because I do know your tricks to stacking. I do know your tricks from the top stacks tool. I believe you said it yourself when I taught you what you were doing before you knew what you were doing.
That is true.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
I don't think you're going to be able to figure it out based on that, though, today.
I'm not going to be able to figure it out?
I don't think I'm using the same strategy that I usually use for this particular contest because it is not as large of a field.
I would maybe put another one in the 3-3-3 there, Neil. Maybe just hedge yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
Make more
Maybe we'll take a look at it.
Just saying. Football season's finally arrived. Hey, I'll be on Live Before Lock on Thursday with Matt Savoca. Cannot tell you how excited I am for it. And if you're excited too, we've got a ton of promotions coming down the pipeline to help you guys out in order to be better prepared for all of the DFS action that's coming here. Promo code touchdown. There you go. Promo code touchdown. Stokastic Platinum, only $10 for 10 days. That has like a Christmas ring to it. 10 days for $10. It's alliteration. I love it. But Stokastic Platinum is the best deal that you're going to get here at Stokastic. It's everything behind the scenes outside of Fantasy Cruncher, of course, which is an add-on. But we're talking the projections. We're talking the top stacks tool for baseball, which we'll be getting to next. We're talking about for NFL, the top stacks tool as well. Cannot wait for that to be updated here and ready to go. The ownership projections, the player projections, the boom bust probability data, which exists in the NFL as well. And then, of course, Showdown. We have all of the materials to help you guys be successful there as well for Thursday night. You want to sign up now and take advantage of this. That's promo code touchdown, a $57 value, $57 of value for just $10 using promo code touchdown. So I would take advantage of that. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Stokastic today. Cool. We continue our way on. Well, oh, thank you. I've done this before, but also it sells itself because it's promo code touchdown and $10 and pretty easy to be able to put all of those pieces together. But take advantage of it now, especially for MLB, because once the NFL shows up, you never know what these contest sizes are going to look like in MLB. You just never know. So I would definitely be signing up and taking advantage for the MLB streets today as well. But Neil, I'm going to just open the floor up to you because I like to ask Greg at the beginning of every single show we do together, what's his go-to single entry stack? What is going to be your single entry stack for the $2,500 Millie Maker on DraftKings tonight?
See, I'm questioning, do I really want to say what it's going to be? But I guess it would only drive down. So I'm not going to tell you the individual players, but I am playing a Brewers stack.
Oh, you had to do it. I just had to.
I know. I don't usually do it. I'm playing the chalk. I'm hoping that other people go away.
So I'm choking on the chalk.
I mean, you can't get much chalkier than Milwaukee at.
No, it's fine. Go ahead. Talk about the best plays. It's fine.
Yeah. I'm sorry to talk about the best plays today, guys, but Milwaukee is just too cheap for a matchup with Chad Kuhl in Coors Field. Doesn't get much better than that. So I'm just going to eat the chalk with Milwaukee because it's just too easy to make a really good, highly projected lineup today. Eating the chalk. Are you disappointed in me, Eric?
Maybe a little.
I get it. That's not my MO to just play the chalk, but sometimes you got to do it. I'm not playing 1 through 5. I'll tell you that.
Gee, thank you. Appreciate it.
Do you want me to tell you what I think is probably the better play?
Well, here's the thing.
Actually, you could guess what
this isn't a normal Coors slate even because we're talking some outrageous ownership on some of these guys. Everybody but Garrett Mitchell is over 22% owned. And we're talking Rowdy Tellez, 35.6. Christian Yelich is 35.2. Colton Wong's 31. Willy Adames is 30.6. I mean, this is not even normal by Coors standards. They're just so much higher. And I get it. Highest implied total on the slate by a mile. It's 98 degrees. You should have pieces of this game. I think you can have them in. It's just hard for me to even imagine building one 5-man Milwaukee stack at this kind of ownership. And I look at the top stacks tool, 23.4% of the time, there's just no way to build out any team where the average of each batter I'm putting in for Milwaukee is close to that kind of a number. Like the average ownership, if I play, even if you put Mitchell into the spread, like it's just absurd what we're looking at in terms of ownership for them. So I'm normally going to be somebody where in certain spots, I just say, hey, jam it. And hey, on Lindy's leans, likes, and locks, I absolutely do think that they can put up easily cover this spread, -1.5 on the run line. But when we're talking DFS, this is just so hard for me to land on a team with negative 10% ownership on this large of a slate.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and that it makes sense. I'm trying to look at what the actual, they are getting crazy ownership.
And so here's the thing. There's a lot of times where I'm just going to get waxed on this kind of a slate. And I'm fine with it because I still think just avoiding 5-mans in Milwaukee is the way to build today. And there are so many good offenses because, again, you have almost every other team in baseball going at it today. So, like, why don't I just take a lot of those spots? Like, even if you played the Cubs, which are the second most chalky because Justin Dunn is a trash bin on fire, you have an opportunity to get to them. There's still only negative 4.4% leverage for DK purposes. Cleveland, negative 3%. I'm not saying don't play Brewers. I'm saying don't play 5-man stacks of Brewers where it's just such a tough battle to see yourself winning in this kind of a spot. I mean, in the NFL, this would be like playing every chalky play on the slate in every lineup spot but like one.
It's only 5 spots, so you do have 3 more spots.
I know.
Different.
I'm just saying.
I don't know that I've made the best lineup. So this is probably why I don't usually play high stakes, despite the name of my podcast.
Here's the thing: I want you to do exactly what you're doing today, because again, Neil, you're one of the most successful DFS players of all time. That's just a fact. It is what it is. You're phenomenal. For me, I just grind my little low stakes, and then, I just kind of have my ways of going about it. It's just hard for me to imagine on a slate like this, just for avoiding, like, you just kind of need everything else to go right in your lineup. And you need the 5-man chalky stack to go. Like, the path for winning is so much easier by not having a 5-man to Milwaukee today. I just truly believe that.
I hear you. And I should say, yes, I have had a lot of success in DFS. I have not had a lot of success in high stakes DFS, which is probably why, because I'm like, shit, I can't play these shitty lineups in this $2,500 entry. So I probably am going against my best interest by playing the chalk, but they just look so good. It's hard for me not to do it when I'm thinking about, I'm going with my gut, as Obi-Wan says here, and it's probably going to come back to bite me. Usually I trust the data. The data is smarter than I am, but in this case, I'm just going to do it. And we got asked a question. I think Rance asked, what is the number one stack? So by the top stack metric of who has the highest odds of being the top stack, it is Milwaukee. It's Milwaukee by a mile, but they are over-owned, which is what Eric is saying he doesn't love about them. They're coming in on the stack 30.3% projected ownership now. That has gone up, and with a 23.6% chance of being the top stack. In terms of leverage score, I would say, where would you go next? So for me, it comes down to it's the Dodgers look really good. Atlanta looks really good, and I am just now using that metric that that I go by, the top stack odds who also have positive leverage. Yes, they both look great. It would make a lot of sense to go there in a single entry as well. So I think probably the best in terms of single entry, I would probably go with Atlanta, actually, just because they're they have slightly lower ownership and slightly lower top stack odds. So it's kind of same difference, Atlanta and the Dodgers. But
I don't hate it.
Go to Atlanta. The only downside there is it's in Oakland.
Well, it's hot out here. What is it? It's going to be, let me just use the Google machine. Oakland. It's going to be 84 degrees at first pitch tonight in Oakland. It's wild. This is the hottest I can ever remember being in LA. And obviously they're 7 hours north of here, but it is warm in the old California. Thoughts and prayers, fam. Thoughts and prayers. That's definitely a better game environment than you would normally see in Oakland. Now, that doesn't change the ballpark dimensions. It can play as a cavern, has the foul ground territory that goes on like a polo field. But I still feel all right about Atlanta if you wanted to go that direction. For me, the Dodgers just really stand out as a team that I want to get to a lot of today. When you're talking about the best offense in baseball, perhaps, or top 3 offense in baseball, getting an opportunity to get them at low ownership on a slate like this and positive leverage, that almost never happens. And this Bribia character, I don't really think we're going to see all that much out of him, are we? They're just,
I don't think so. I think in an inning or two, I think.
Yeah. So, we're going to see bullpen, but at the same time, there are enough Dodgers where we know it's not like Trey Turner's coming out of the game. Mookie Betts isn't coming out of the game. Chris Taylor has multi-position eligibility. I'm willing to roll with that. Freeman's not coming out. You've got the opportunity of Muncy Turner at third base. There's a lot of guys that still make sense to be getting to from the Dodgers side. I don't know if they would be, again, I haven't thought about it. I'm not playing single entry today, so I don't have to have the one stack to rule them all, one stack to find them kind of situation. Shout out Rings of Power, even though it hasn't been good so far.
Have you been watching it? You haven't loved it? I watched the first 2 episodes. It's all right. My wife is a huge Lord of the Rings fan.
Me too.
So I watch it with her.
Yeah.
And I've enjoyed it enough.
Just trying to explain everything to my wife constantly throughout a show makes the viewing experience a little less enjoyable, not going to lie. But also, it's fun to have her enthusiastic to actually care about all of these little nerdy things that I love so much. And then it's like, Gimlet, is he related to Gimli? Is this going to be a through line? And stuff like that I get nerdy for.
Yeah. It's,
nobody cares.
Have you been watching House of the Dragon?
Oh, yeah.
I nerd out more for House of the Dragon. That's
I'm here for that.
Viewing for me. Yeah.
This has been fun so far. This is fun. Last night's episode or 2 nights ago was pretty fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I'm having fun. Cool. Hit that like button too, everybody. I haven't asked for likes yet, and I think we definitely need to get those likes up here as we continue to some of the other stacks that make a lot of sense on this kind of a slate. I will say there's enough. So at the same time that there's really, it's not the strongest of pitching sites. It's also not the top, I want to get to other stacks kind of a slate. Of course, Milwaukee stands out, and I just got done saying that. I want to get to all the St. Louis and all the land. That is for sure. There's a little bit of negative leverage there. That's going to be one of my 3-4 highest owned stacks. They are almost every single day because apparently Terry and I agree on everything, whether it's Erod or St. Louis.
Not a bad thing.
I know that
to agree with
just
Terry.
This entire season. He seems like a good guy to listen to. I would definitely listen to him in those regards. But St. Louis always jumps to the top of my model. Dodgers, of course, I already talked about. Who are some of the other teams that if you were playing a bunch of lineups today, that you would have a lot of interest in?
Yeah, so we mentioned Milwaukee, the Dodgers, the Braves. Going down, I mean, Toronto looks pretty incredible. 2.2% projected ownership with a 5.6% chance of being the top stack on the board, going up against Kyle Bradish. That might be a lineup where you need to play Mayers because they're going to be a little bit expensive. A 0.3% chance of being the top value stack on the slate. But I think Toronto looks pretty good just from odds of completely going off. They could get it done against Kyle Bradish, even in this new Baltimore stadium.
Yeah, we just saw Colorado. Bichette go yard 3 times. I think there's a guy. Maybe you have a team like Toronto. It's the way I feel about the Yankees. If the ball gets hit hard, it's leaving the yard.
Yep, exactly.
Even if Bichette isn't like the guy I think about as like quote unquote power hitter, that was kind of an outlier.
Do you think you're going to be playing? I mean, we talked about how much we like Brandon Woodruff. I think this is a both sides for me coming in at Colorado, coming in at 3.9% projected ownership, 4.9% chance of being top stack on the board. It's tough because it's a really tough matchup with Brandon Woodruff, but then again, it is in Colorado. Do you have interest there?
I just hate the lineup. It's really hard for me. Like I have shares of McMahon. I always do. I like him. CJ Cron, I always have shares of too. Both of them 4,800, 4,900. Pretty cheap to get to them. I want you to guess how many times this season do you think he's gotten to 20 fantasy points?
Sorry, who are we talking about? You
Jonathan Daza hitting second for Colorado.
20 fantasy points?
On DraftKings.
3?
0.
Yeah, not a great play.
I'm not saying that he can't be optimal. He's 2,300. You can play him in some stacks. I'm not saying to not do that, but for me, he's just an unappealing bat. And then you start talking about Toglia, Diaz, Montero, Trejo at the bottom of this lineup. It is just dirty. It is not fun. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah. I get it. I don't really want to play Colorado. Like, really, the reason you want to play them is it is in Coors Field, and I'm not getting any ownership. That's the reason to play Colorado. But tough matchup, not a great lineup. So I can see both sides of it. Not really my favorite stack on the day, but they do have positive leverage. So in a 150 set, I would get to some.
Is this Tyler from Texas? Is this literally our Tyler that's out here?
I don't think so. I don't believe so.
All right. If you were throwing 4 darts into the relay throw, which stacks would you throw in not named Milwaukee? You're the best at throwing darts and winning stuff. Well, thank you. All you have to do is get on a plane, fly from South Dakota to here, have almost no time to build lineups. So you just hand build 4 lineups, and then all of a sudden you win 25K. That felt good. Or 30K, I guess it ended up being for the
day.
That
was a day that you didn't have a lot of time?
I had 0 time. I got home 30 minutes before the slate locked, and then threw some hand builds in. It was awfully fun. If I had to build 4 lineups in the relay throw here today, let's see. What would I do? I'll build 4 and throw them in there. Let's see. St. Louis would be one. I would have St. Louis. I would have Cincinnati would probably be one that I would get to as well. I mean, absolutely nobody is going to play Cincinnati whatsoever. But Wade Miley, anytime somebody's coming off the IL and making a start, he's not going to be deep for this game either. But there's enough cheap pieces there where I can get to some of the guys that I want to be playing. On the other side, absolutely nobody is going to play them. There are also like 48 guys that I want to get to in that Chicago Cubs side as well. Cincinnati, Chicago, that entire game seems like they're just showing up in my lineup. So I'd maybe say Cubs as well. St. Louis and the Dodgers, of course. There you go.
Yeah, Cincinnati. I was about to bring up Cincinnati. They do look like a really good stack today, coming in at 1% ownership with an 11% chance of being the top point per dollar stack on the slate. Looking pretty good there.
Tyler, that's funny too. Tyler from Texas. That's exactly what it sounded like. Just calling in to troll and have a good day. But yes, I'm the best at throwing random garbage in and winning money. Tough life. Somebody's got to do it though. Any other stack that you really want to highlight here? Because it feels like, you know, on this large of a slate, we can get a little muddled down where you're going to have shares of a lot of teams, and how you go about building your lineups. It really revolves around what Milwaukee does. If they go off, I'm going to lose a lot of money today.
Yeah. So other stacks, I would play some White Sox against Logan Gilbert. Obviously a tough matchup. but getting under 1% projected ownership, and they are a lineup that can do some damage. So I don't mind playing some White Sox against Logan Gilbert just because of the lack of ownership there. And they have a 2.1% chance of being the top stack on the slate, which is pretty high relative to the 0.8% ownership. So I would probably go there. Some none of these other stacks are really sticking out to me. I feel like we've talked about all of the stacks that look really good. Am I missing any others that you want to talk about?
I think you've done such an eloquent job personally.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I feel pretty confident that we should get to some Washington against Jose Quintana too, mainly because he's just not that good. And I don't know what it is. This Washington team, I don't look at anything they've done the last three days, and I don't think that they're any good whatsoever. But there are some righties that just keep showing up in lineups for me. Lane Thomas leading off at 2,300. Nelson Cruz against anybody batting fourth there. Joey Meneses, who's apparently good. I don't know, at 229 ISO on the season. Looks pretty good to me. Luis Garcia, Luke Voigt, who, is somebody whose home run props always never make sense to me because he doesn't hit very many anymore. Pretty overrated hitter, but still showing up some stacks. Washington, special little shout out for them. And it's not like there's any pitcher that is getting a ton of ownership that I want to be targeting. I'm not going to be going against Valdez or Bieber. Musgrove with Arizona a tiny bit, but not really that much of anything. I think getting Detroit makes sense, and I think getting to Washington makes sense, kind of targeting Mike Myers and Jose Quintana, who are actually pulling some type of ownership.
I guess you brought up that you like St. Louis every day, right?
I do.
They're exactly
every day.
Yeah, they have very neutral leverage in the top stack tool, but I kind of like St. Louis here. It's just a good matchup against Paulo Espino. I'm surprised that they don't have higher top stack odds. I guess it's just because Milwaukee has such high top stack odds, and the Dodgers and the Braves as well. So I guess that kind of dampens them. But I kind of like St. Louis just in that matchup with Paulo Espino. They're only getting 5.4% projected ownership. I like that there. So
yeah, Busch Stadium sucks as a ballpark. I think that's part of it. You look at the 3-year rolling sample. There isn't a single category that they are positive in. Oh, singles. There you go. Singles are 101 on Baseball Savant. Congratulations. Whoop-de-doo, Basil. What does it all mean? But in terms of run creation, one of the lower stadiums on the board, Busch Stadium is. Home runs plays way down, 83. So we're talking about a bottom 8 ballpark in terms of home runs over a 3-year sliding sample. So hard for me to really look at the stadium and think, oh, that's exciting. But apparently Lars Nootbaar got good. Nolan Gorman, a 480 expected slugging, primarily just a platoon guy now at this point. Nolan Arenado, Tyler O'Neill, who was just crushing baseballs last season. When guys get healthy, you maybe think you can get that direction. And even Corey Dickerson has a 400 expected slugging. I did not expect to see that when I looked at Corey Dickerson. So, there's some pieces that I just like to get to, mainly 1 through 7.
Yeah, same page. Yeah, I like St. Louis here today, so glad we talked about them a little bit. Did you say that you like Luke Voigt today?
I didn't know. I did not say I like him. He's just showing up in lineups because he's got a 451 expected slugging, a 46.5% hard hit percentage. My thing is that sportsbooks always have his props, like his home run props today. If you go over to Odd Shopper, that's just a thing that you can always be looking at. I'm just curious what it's at today because it seems like every time he faces a lefty, he's plus 280 to hit a homer. And you know what he never does, Neil?
Hit a homer against lefties.
He never hits a homer. Let's see. He is plus 430 is the best bet on the board for him today. That's actually a lot higher than I've seen of him of late. 400 at DraftKings. So a number of books that still have him up there.
I just brought him up because I know Terry hates him. So, you and Terry usually agree on stuff.
I didn't know that.
I figured.
Oh no, I don't like Luke Voigt.
Double check there.
I didn't know we were comparing that one. We have the same opinion there too. We both don't think he's very good. Apparently. All right, good. So that's cool. You know what I think is very good though, Neil?
What do you think is very good?
Overlay. You know where you can get a lot of really good overlay right now?
Is it Drafters? I see the screen behind you.
You could definitely go over to Drafters. I mean, the screen. I mean, I tell you what, guy buys a TV, becomes a walking billboard. But you know what? I can get behind overlay. And right now, if you head to Drafters, they're giving you guys a promo code to get $100 first match deposit bonus using Stokastic. Yes, Stokastic, Stokastic. Look at me. I can spell. That will activate the offer for $100 first match deposit bonus over at Drafters. They have some massive overlay going on for their $1 million best ball championship, $250K going to first. I would sign up over there instantly. If I were building lineups, if I were done building my lineups, I'm not done building my lineups. I would absolutely head over to there ASAP and I would start drafting some teams, pull up some of the scoring. Adam talked through some of the differences in scoring between these other sites, that being Underdog, DraftKings, these other sites that have already filled up all their contests. Go fill up over at Drafters because it's not going to fill. You're going to have overlay in your pocket before Thursday night. Only 2 days left to take advantage of this. Head over there, use promo code Stokastic, get $100 first match deposit bonus. Say, hey, if you want to just put $25 into the contest, they're going to give you $25. You'll be able to enter another one in that main $1 million best ball championship. So go take advantage of that. Download the app at the App Store, Google Play Store right now, or head to drafters.com. Start playing immediately. Randy Arozarena, 3-run home run. That is not good for me. No, that's great for me. Never mind. Tampa Bay, -1.5. I read that really weirdly. That's what happens on shows. But we are going to Jordan Klein here, who has sent me some lovely screenshots of chats that I need to get caught up on. 15 minutes to go. Hit that like button. Ryan Nelson, Deckers being her Lord and Savior. Oh, so we're talking Iowa State football, lefty slinger. Doesn't make me comfortable, but that program in Iowa City must lose. Disgrace to the country. They absolutely are. Did you witness Iowa, a 2-safety and a field goal game to beat South Dakota State on Saturday?
Did I watch a college football game between Iowa and South Dakota State?
Of course you did. Me? Obviously you did.
Fuck no, I didn't watch that game. Why would I care about those teams? Sorry, Eric. Sorry, Eric. I didn't mean it. I meant gentle. Sorry, I didn't have time that day.
Cyber real estate, $5. Hello. I'm shocked at the vulgarity and the language out of Neil Orfield's fucking disgrace. On average, what better choice? $2,000 salary talent player. Players batting 8th, 9th order, or average of $2,000 player talent batting 4th or 5th order. Better choice of $2,000 salary. Well, obviously, if they're batting 4th or 5th, they're assumed to be better hitters. And at 2K, they're probably going to be more popular. So the 8-9 guys might be less popular. It has more to do with the overall construction of your lineup than it does how good they are, because again, if they're batting 4th or 5th, they're either, they're obviously 2K flat, and like a Nick Prado is somebody who is going to be a good player eventually. He's been 2K flat a lot lately, not today, I don't believe, but how do you feel about that question, Neil?
Yeah, so I answered in chat. I think I'd generally rather play the 4 or 5 batters. Maybe there are exceptions, like, the Dodgers have a much higher implied run total. Maybe Joey Gallo in the 9-hole is a better play sometimes than a 4 or 5 batter in the middle of the order in a tough matchup. As a general rule, though, yeah, I'm going to prefer to play the guys in the middle of the order.
I don't even know what to say to you anymore.
Especially today. We only have one game that actually has a high run implied total. Like, even the Dodgers don't have a huge implied total. So I think in that case, I'd rather just go to guys in the middle of the order. Sorry, you were talking about a football game between 2 Midwestern states that are not Minnesota. I can't see why I would care.
Very rude.
Did you go to SDSU?
No, but I'm from South Dakota, and Division I athletics in South Dakota, there's 2 schools. Actually, Augustana College is going to be getting Division I hockey next year, which will be exciting.
That is exciting.
Yeah, you don't care. You're just a jerk. Yeah, anything else you want to talk about stacks before we kind of close out the show here? Talk about our lineups, recap some pitching and some other things for the people.
No, I think we mostly covered all of the good stacks. You brought up Cincinnati. I think that was a good call out. We talked about Cleveland looking just a little bit over-owned. Otherwise, I'd like to go there. So yeah, Milwaukee, the Dodgers, Atlanta, some of my favorite stacks. I like Toronto a lot. We talked about St. Louis. Colorado looks like they have a little bit of positive leverage. Houston, you can kind of go to any day, including when they're facing Glen Otto. They're always going to look pretty good against Glen Otto. They are looking neutral in the top stack tool, coming in at 4.6% ownership with a 4.4% chance of being the top stack. But still, I wouldn't mind being overweight to Houston in that kind of a matchup. Terry mentioned that the Detroit lineup is not looking all that great.
The Detroit lineup isn't?
Yeah, that's what Terry was saying in chat. The Detroit lineup is not looking great. I haven't looked.
I didn't see it as it came through. We saw Blue Jays Orioles expected to start at 7:20. Whoop-de-doo. Doesn't change anything. Josh Lester, Ryan Kreidler. Yeah, this is the fun time of the year. That's for sure. Spencer Torkelson batting 5th. Wow, that's not ideal.
Okay, so we got a question in The Discord from 024631 is 175% total ownership. Too much for my single entry. I don't really look at that closely. So do you have an answer to that, or does somebody who looks at the cumulative ownership have a better answer? Because I honestly, that's not something that I look at closely.
Nope. I don't look at it like at all. Cumulative ownership for me. Here's if you want to go on the cumulative ownership rant. I mean, I know you do shows with a guy who likes to go on some rants once in a while, Neil Orfield, my friend. And he's very good at them. There's no doubt about it. But it's so slate dependent. You can't have one size fits all for one given slate. Every slate is going to have a different cumulative ownership. And so you have to be kind of eyeballing it every single slate to figure out exactly what that number is. For me, as we get into NFL, I like to look at a specific number of like, all right, 12.5%. I want to have 3 players in my lineup that are underneath that so that I get some contrarian builds. We also are going to have a tool that can help you do that instantly over at Stokastic this season, where I'm telling you, the developers have been doing some unbelievable stuff here in NFL. But just like we have for the MLB spot where we're able to do the player comparison tool, we're going to have a lineup builder tool that's going to be so easy to use. You can have it on your cell phone and fire it up. So get ready for some of that here. But on a slate like this, because of the Brewers, if you had like your normal everyday, oh, well, it's a 10-game slate, 12-game slate, and this is the way I'm going to do it, let me just say, you would be constraining yourself to like 0 Brewers. So it's so hard to say what that number is supposed to be on certain slates. You almost have to just build some lineups and then adjust that number accordingly if you're going to do it that way.
I just ran a crunch of 5 lineups, which I hadn't done previously because I just hand built my one lineup just to see what it looks like. And all 5 of the lineups that I built without telling it to do any stacks, all 5 of them are 5-man Brewers stacks, and they range in total ownership from 240, I think, is the lowest overall ownership, to 255 is the highest. 257 actually is the highest. So that is, I think that seems like a personally reasonable ownership sum.
Okay.
On this slate.
Good talk though, everybody. Good talk. Glad we had it. Makes a lot of sense to me, but get your lineups in here. We got 4 minutes before the end of the show. It's been a eventful one, especially when Neil just besmirched the great states of South Dakota and Iowa at the same time. You know, just where I grew up and then the state that I went to school at.
Listen,
done.
I don't watch college football in general. So I'm just saying, if I were to watch college football, it would be the Gophers. It would be maybe, and a lot of people are going to hold this against me, maybe Notre Dame, because my brother went there. So like when I was in high school, I became a brief Notre Dame fan. Yeah, I wouldn't say that.
Did we get a fist pump from Jordan Klein?
Is Jordan Klein a Notre Dame fan?
Oh my God.
All right. So my brother went to Notre Dame, my older brother. I was in high school. I became a big fan he was also in the marching band. So like he was on the field with them. So I kind of became a Notre Dame fan in those years. But I don't see any reason why I would watch South Dakota State and Iowa.
Rah, rah for Sky Yuma is all you do. Rah, rah for the U of M. Fight song. Cool.
I think I went to one U of M football game in my 3 years of law school there. So not a huge fan there.
Andrew Martinez, thoughts on Valdez/Anderson in GPP? Is that your pitching combination for your lineup today?
It is not my pitching combination for my lineup today, just because I was able to play a higher projected pitching combination.
Okay.
But I think that it's a great, I got nothing against that combo.
Okay. Sounds good.
Looks really good.
I feel like there was one other thing I was supposed to do. No, there's nothing else I'm supposed to do on the sheet today. No shows after this one. We start the whole party over tomorrow, talking baseball, but we have some NFL mixed in the middle as well. I believe you have an NFL show with the great Laufey tomorrow morning, correct?
I do. I just occurred to me before the show, because I've been so swamped with everything with high stakes followed by the show. I was like, okay, wait, today's Tuesday. Oh, so tomorrow at 10 a.m. I have an NFL show. So I got to start preparing for that probably sometime soon tonight, because NFL takes a little bit more for me to prepare than other sports. So I'm looking forward to it though. I just learned earlier this week that I was going to be on a regular show with Laufey, but that'll be a lot of fun. I used to watch that show every week, so happy to be on it.
All right. T McBee, you've had a lot of back and forth with intelligent things, but yes, combination probabilities, more important than cumulative ownership. I agree. There's a specific term for it. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's basically when you're looking at the sum of like what the ownership is. Like if you can get 3 batters that are 15-20%, that's better than if you have 3 batters that are like 5%, And then, whatever else. And if it adds up to the same amount of ownership, it's better to have the 3-5% bats than it is to have everything add up where it's like 15, 15, 15 throughout your entire lineup. So there's definitely some processes you can go through to make sure that happens. Season 2 of High Stakes soon. Starting now, baby.
Already started. We had one episode already. Yeah, we had the first episode was with Chess Liam, the reigning best ball winner on Underdog, was the first episode. The second episode I just aired today with EMAC will be coming out on Friday. At this point, we are doing bi-weekly instead of weekly, just to try to work it out so we can do 20 episodes per season to 25 and then have a little break in between. So I think we're just going to be bi-weekly for at least during NFL season.
It's all right.
Hopefully I'll have you on at some point, Eric.
Maybe one day. I don't know if I could have all these trade secrets coming out, Neil. I can't have it. I got to keep my own process to myself like the people think. There's none of that. I'm just a luck box. But guys, that is the MLB Live Before Lock show. It was entertaining. It was special. It was enjoyable. If you had a fun time too, hit that like button as we get out of here. Thanks to I almost said Professor Jordan Klein. That's not true
Professor
at all.
Jordan Klein.
What is wrong with my brain? Jordan Klein, the guy who wants to have me say something bad. Is that a turkey? What was that?
Sounded like Jordan was going to join us for a second.
Oh,
he got shy.
Like,
Jordan got
whatever.
shy.
Yeah, I'm shy. I can't do it. Neil Orfield, any final words for the people?
No, good luck tonight. I hope you did not play the lineup that I played because it's not a great one.
Watch, you're going to win $1 million, and then you're just going to you can shout me out from the rooftops on Twitter and make sure that it hurts. Enjoyed it. Thanks to everybody in chat for having a fun time. Best of luck in the MLB streets. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow. Go to Drafters.